Hello everyone, I'm Tom Wistersell, Commissioner of the Big Sky Conference. We'd love to be in person, but in lieu of that, we're here in Farmington, Utah, Big Sky World Headquarters. We thought we'd give you a tour of the office. Come on, let's take a look. All right, welcome to one of our conference rooms here at the Big Sky Headquarters, where we celebrate our conference champions. As you can see, we have the photos up here from the Fall 2019 champions. Northern Colorado with women's soccer and with volleyball. Northern Arizona, women's cross country and men's cross country. And then our co-champs in football, Weber State with its third straight championship. Sacramento State also shared in the crown this past fall. In this room, we'll host coaches meetings. It's our larger of our conference room, and it will, in someday soon, be spread with championship photos from all our sports. Let's also not forget our basketball champions, Eastern Washington in men's basketball and Montana State in women's basketball. Welcome to our wall of national champions. As you can see, a great history of football national champions, and then a dominant run by Northern Arizona. They almost added to this list last year. Hopefully in the future they can. They also, and congrats to the Lumberjacks on this, our conference's first ever #1 ranking in men's indoor track and field. Congrats to them. Welcome to our football award-winning hallway, where we honor our Buck Buchanan award winners. Dante Olson from Montana will go on this wall. And a special congratulations to our Eddie Robinson award winner. Troy Taylor from Sacramento State won it this previous year. And the year before that, Dan Hawkins won it from Cal Davis. Congratulations also to the great year we had academically. More than 1,700 Big Sky student athletes received academic awards. Welcome into the Commissioner's office here at Big Sky Headquarters. You know, one of the great things I've been able to do as Commissioner is travel around to our schools and start something called Competing with the Commissioner. Had a great time meeting our student athletes. When I was at Sacramento State, they were nice enough to sign a softball for me. I think they were feeling sorry for me because of my poor pitching performance, but that's for another day. But also, I was able to compete in the weight throw, volleyball, and basketball. Some went better than others. You'll see the clips here.
Oh! Oh! Oh, no! Oh, almost. That was catchable at least.
And then rotate on the ball of your left foot and push off here.
And I'm supposed to get all the way back to there?
Exactly.
Oh! There you go. There's some heat on that one. This is way harder than it looks. Well, that didn't work.
You know, thinking about my performances reminds me that we had our first ever Hall of Fame for the Big Sky Conference this year. Now, none of my performances would have made it, but we had an incredible cast that filled out our first ever class for the Big Sky Hall of Fame. One of the things I hope you've noticed is our upgraded technology and the amount of social media content we've been able to produce as a staff. I'm really proud of what we've done over the last year. Look forward to an exciting future with more creative content about Big Sky student athletes, coaches, and the schools that we represent. Also, we've started the Big Sky Team of the Month, and really excited about the Commissioner's Belt, which made a great first round through the conference. Now we're in the main conference room here at Big Sky Headquarters, where we have listed the vision, mission, and values for our conference. During this difficult time with the COVID pandemic, we've relied on these as we've made difficult decisions about student athletes, about our competition, and about our future. We're also really excited about our new diversity and inclusion plan that we're going to unveil for this fall. Look forward to making a difference, doing something that's meaningful and together as an entire conference. Well, we hope you've enjoyed your tour of Big Sky World Headquarters. Look towards our new slogan, #ExperienceElevated, as we enter the 2021 season. Let's kick off the football season with our virtual kickoff.
It's time to reveal the 2020 Big Sky Football Preseason Coaches Poll. Coming in at number 13 is newly hired head coach Ed McCaffrey and his Northern Colorado program. Southern Utah is at number 12, 4 points behind number 11, Idaho State. Beau Baldwin makes his return to the Big Sky in 2020 with his Mustangs earning the number 10 spot. 9, 8, and 7 were all separated by 1 point each as Idaho, Portland State, and Northern Arizona filled the spots. UC Davis was voted 6th, and reigning Big Sky co-champion Sacramento State received 1 first-place vote as it was slotted 5th. The number 4 spot belongs to Eastern Washington as the Eagles earned 1 first-place vote. The last 3 spots are filled by the 3 teams that advanced to the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs last season. 7 points separate each spot. Montana State was voted 3rd with 1 first-place vote. Montana earned 3 first-place votes and a number 2 predicted finish. At number 1 with 135 points and 7 first-place votes is Jay Hill and the Weber State Wildcats. Weber State has won at least a share of the Big Sky football title for the past 3 seasons. Now it's time to break down the 2020 Big Sky football preseason media poll results. Northern Colorado was voted 13th, while Southern Utah came in at number 12. Idaho State and Cal Poly maintain the same rankings at number 11 and number 10. Northern Arizona was voted 9th by the media, while 1 point separated Idaho and Portland State at the 8 and 7 spots. UC Davis earned 1 first-place vote as they were voted 6th. Sacramento State was voted 5th, and Eastern Washington received 1 first-place vote to earn the number 4 spot. We're down to the top 3 preseason teams with 6 first-place votes. Coach Choate and the Montana State Bobcats are ranked 3rd in the media poll. Coming in 2nd with 8 first-place votes is Coach Houck and the Montana Grizzlies. That means Weber State takes the top spot in both the 2020 Big Sky football preseason coaches and media polls. Coach Hill and his program earned 28 first-place votes and 546 overall points as they're predicted to win the conference title. Up next, we will begin interviews with our 13 Big Sky football head coaches. Stay tuned. It is time for head coach interviews for the 2020 Big Sky Football Virtual Kickoff. I'm joined by Idaho State head coach Rob Fennessy, Montana State head coach Jeff Choate, and Portland State head coach Bruce Barnum. Welcome, gentlemen. So we're going to just jump right in with our first set of questions. This one's for all of you. Coach Choate, we'll start with you. What is the biggest game on your schedule?
They're all big, but I think there's one the third week in November that's pretty big in the state of Montana. It's kind of hard to ignore that one. Obviously, I think we've got a really tough schedule this year. Go on the road to Portland State, play Rob's team. We've got an opportunity to play, I think, at all 3, Weber State, at Eastern Washington, and at Montana. So the road stretch is going to be what's most challenging for us.
Right. Coach Fennessy, I'm going to throw that over to you now.
Well, we gotta, if you look at the top 10 of either Hero Sports or whoever does, we're playing basically everybody in the top 10. Obviously we got the Cats. It's very tough to play up at their place. We got Northern Iowa coming in. We got Sac State with or without Kevin Thompson. They're going to be a very good team. Obviously the Grizzlies and Weber State. So that's tough. And then it's always a tough game to go out to Portland and play. We got some really tough road games as well, in addition to opening up the season with, a couple of 1A teams. But just like I said, we're playing kind of the who's who of the top 10 this year. So it'll be very challenging.
Absolutely. Now, Coach Barnum, what about you?
Mary, there's like these guys said, this conference is such a a demon. I mean, it's brutal week to week. But I think we have a trophy, the Dam Cup. I think Eastern, if you look at ours, our players, coaches. I mean, I think that's the game we look at to kind of win for as far as rivalries and the big one in the locker room.
Gotcha. All right. Now, Coach Barnum, I have another question for you. How difficult is it not having a campus stadium, or at least one that's nearby the campus?
Half team will travel, Mary Luz. We'll play you anywhere. That's why I like playing these guys. Some guys complain about going on the road. I love it. I mean, these guys have great stadiums. I mean, playing at Jeff's and Rob's place, I like them all. But ours is unique. We're dealing with that right now, but we're at Hillsboro for the next 4. We signed a 5-year originally, and there's some talk going on about where we're going to put it. I want to put it right here on campus, but who knows what the future holds. But we don't let that be a distraction to our players.
Absolutely. Now, Coach Cho, what was your priority in bringing in NC State transfer Matt McKay to compete at quarterback with returning starter Tucker Rovig?
To get better, I think that was it. Create competition. That's a really important position. We've had a really interesting kind of go of things here. But the other thing I'll tell you is, I'm not afraid to play multiple quarterbacks either. And so if we can get a number of talented individuals in there, we'll find a way. That's been one of the things I think we've done a really good job of as staff, is finding a way to get our playmakers their touches. And if we can do that through the air, great. But generally for us, it's been getting creative in the run game. And so having guys like Tucker and Casey Bauman's a guy who's a really talented athlete, who a lot of guys I think in this league would be excited to have. I think we have 3 quarterbacks that have won Division I games on our roster right now. And so I think that continuing to prioritize that position and pushing us forward, I think that's kind of been the missing link for us in terms of maybe breaking through and winning a conference title. I know firsthand, having gone to Fargo the last 2 years and played against exceptional quarterbacks, that if we want to take that next step and get another one of those things behind me, we're going to have better quarterback play. And I think Tucker did an awesome job getting us to the national semifinals last year. But for us to be able to bring in a guy with a lot of experience at the 1A level that can push him, the winner of that competition is going to help us be better as a team.
Absolutely. Now, Coach Fennessy, for you have a new quarterback in Wyoming transfer, Tyler Vanderwall. What have you seen from him thus far, and are you expecting an open competition at that spot in the fall with Matt Struck also on your roster?
Well, we didn't get any spring ball. We didn't get any spring ball in, so haven't seen much from the guy. But he's. We brought him in basically, just like Jeff said, why they brought their kid in from North Carolina State. We needed competition at that position, and towards the end of the season last year, we didn't get quite the level of play that we needed there, and it showed obviously with our record. And Tyler has come in with a great leadership ability. Obviously, just in the workouts and stuff that we were able to do, but like I said, we haven't been able to really evaluate much out of him because we didn't get a day of spring ball in. But we're looking for that position. Just like I said, I'll mention what Jeff said again, is competition, and that's why you bring guys in like that to let the cream rise to the top.
Absolutely. It is a tough time to really get to evaluate that without, getting to play that spring ball. So Coach Barnum, what sort of advantage does having a quarterback Davis Alexander on your roster give you?
Advantage of Davis, you know what? I heard it from probably half the team we played, Mary Louise. And first thing you see with him is how tough he is. I mean, he lost his shoulder, his off shoulder, the second practice of last year, and he still played through the whole season. And he's productive. I mean, he's a winner. He cares more about the game than the average guy on your team. So his leadership and his toughness are his key assets, I think.
Now, a follow-up to that, Coach Barnum, the Big Sky is replacing a number of top quarterbacks from last season. How does that affect the conference race?
The conference race, the first one, the mighty portal, it's become the 7-Eleven of college football. You stop by and get a banana Slurpee or Coke and whatever they got going. And, Kevin was lost. He was, what a talent, for this conference. We lost a couple portal guys, one to Oregon State and one down south. So I don't know. You know, it's a quarterback conference. It always has been. I like mine, but these guys love theirs too. You know, I had a little bit of an advantage because we got spring practice in before the mighty COVID hit. But now I think all that's going to even out because guys are coming back. I'm sure the majority will probably come back before us because Multnomah County's not doing great right now. So.
Now, Coach Cho, in each of your first 4 seasons, your teams have improved. How does Montana State take the proverbial next step this next season?
I think it's going to be a real challenge. I mean, we talked about the difficulty of our schedule, and that's one of the pieces. I think oftentimes in this conference, and I think Bruce and Rob would both agree, who you play, when you play them, and where you play them has a lot of determining factors in terms of how successful your season's going to be. And I think our league more than most is like that. You know, when I was in the SEC, I really felt like it was like that too. Playing Tennessee and Gainesville was a big advantage for us over having to go to Knoxville. And I think it's the same way. Playing Portland State and Bozeman is a huge advantage versus going to Portland. And so I think those things play out and it speaks to the strength of our league. But we've got to stay the course. I mean, one of the things that concerns me the most right now, I don't really think that we were the most physically gifted team over the last couple of years, but I do think that we had really good chemistry and we had a toughness about us that allowed us to play a lot of tight games and win a lot of tight games. And my concern more than anything isn't the fact that we're not training as consistently as we have or practicing as consistently as we have. We're just not around our guys. And I think that's kind of the secret ingredient in any great organization is the people. And so that's probably my biggest concern for us taking that next step is how quickly are we going to be able to reestablish our standards and our culture.
Now, Coach Fennessy, you went into last year with a lot of experienced players at just about every position, and this year looks a little different. How does that change your coaching mindset?
Well, we're 4 new offensive linemen. It's you almost got to start from the square one with these guys because, like I said, and we didn't have a spring ball to get these guys evaluated, so we really don't know. We don't know what we have. We have some guys with some experience, but you can't go in as advanced. Our second year here with Tanner Guller at quarterback and a veteran group, it was really easy. We could really push the offense further than we have, but we're gonna have to go to back to the basics on this deal. Go to the beginning and make sure we understand our foundation, which you pretty much do every year. But sometimes it moves faster than other years. And this year, like I said, once we start, we'll have to see how we're doing with those steps.
Now, I have a question for each of you, and Coach Fennessy, we can start with you. What do you see as being your team's biggest strength this season?
Well, biggest strength is one thing. We're pretty fortunate to have the entire coaching staff remain intact, so there's no new learning from that standpoint. Got a bunch of hungry guys that really want to get going. They've been here working out and doing a great job of it. Hopefully we'll be a little bit better on defense. Got a veteran group coming back, and that's kind of where we're at. We're pretty young. We're pretty inexperienced everywhere else. Coach
Cho, your team's biggest strength this season?
Well, I hope it's that unity that we talked about a moment ago. I think that's, again, a secret ingredient in this thing. But if you just look strictly at kind of what we have, we returned 4 of our 5 starters on the offensive line, 3 of which I think are legitimate honors candidates. So I think that's definitely our strength. I think we've got an excellent offensive line group returning with a ton of experience. And then on the defensive line, we lost 3 really good players, 2 all-conference players and another young man that was a major contributor for us. But I think that will continue to be a strength for us. I think we've got Amandre Williams coming off the edge who really started to blossom at the end of last year when UW bounced down. We got an interior guy named John Clark that started multiple games at the University of Washington. He's a graduate transfer. Chase Benson, who I think is over last season was, I think, the best interior defensive lineman in our league and consistently performed at a high level. And then on the other edge, you say, hey, how are you going to replace Troy Anderson? Well, we're not, but we've got a lot of depth at the edge positions, kind of like Daniel Hardy, who came in and had a really good tail ended last year, a junior college transfer that we had the luxury of redshirting last year, Tyson Regenball, and then a 5th-year senior in Kyle Finch. So I like our depth. Maybe we don't return as much productivity on the D line as you might think, but I think we're going to be pretty salty. And then on the O line, I think we've got the combination of depth and experience that you want to have there. So we'll probably be able to run the ball. Well, we will, because we won't try to do anything else. But the good news is I think that's going to help us if we get a slow start to the season, because we don't have to worry about as much about timing in the passing game and things of that nature.
Right. Now, Coach Barnum, that same question for you, your team's biggest strength.
You look at it, you address it during recruiting. We had a chance to see it out here, spring practice, but I think we're going to be able to score. I do. I like us offensively. I think, Jeff runs the ball more than Rob, but I think Choate's going to look over and say, you know what, when he sees the film, look at all those running backs. I like how we bolstered some positions that were already strong. But between my quarterback and a core of receivers I have that are smart, tough, productive football players, we added a little bit there. The one thing we had to address was the offensive line on that side of the ball. But we have that stable of running backs where I love it. There's some guys there that I think are going to be very productive in this conference, including a freshman, all the way up to senior. Go to defense. We had issues. We gave up too many big plays, period. We gave up too many big plays, so we had to fix that. I think we're going to be able to score, and I know we brought in some guys defensively that are going to change that side of the ball around. So we're excited right now. We think we have I know we have good kids, right, Mary Louise, but now I think we have a pretty damn good football team that we need to get on the football field and play a couple of these guys I'm looking at.
That's great. Now, Coach Barnum, I want to talk about Anthony Adams. He had a stellar season last year as a sophomore. What do you expect from him this year?
Everything. I mean, he's a leader. He's kind of the stalwart over there. He makes sure that group's set in the weight room and off, on the street when they're here around Stott Center. He's the leader on that side of the football. And, he's fun to watch. But our defense, what we do on defense, put him in a position to make plays. So this year, with some different things, I think we're going to move him back to corner. That's where he ran in the spring. But he's the one guys look to over there. And I like what he is. I mean, you asked earlier, one of your first questions, was about the rivalry game. He's the student athlete who comes up to me before every season, not that week, and asks, what are we doing for Eastern? What are we doing for Eagle Week? So that's who Anthony is for our team.
It's great. Now, Coach Fennessy, what are 2 to 3 things your team needs to do right now to contend for a playoff spot this season? And what is still the biggest challenge for you at ISU to building a consistent winner?
Well, one thing we got to do is not throw the ball to the other team. That'll help us get to the playoffs, maybe like last year. But no, we need to grow at the quarterback position. We need to obviously grow at the offensive line position. We need to play better defense. We need to not give up so many yards on the ground. And I said it's not going to be easy against these 2 other coaches that are here. But those are the things that we got. We're only as good as our quarterback, and I think that was evident last year. And Tyler or Matt or whoever it is, needs to be very productive. Just the challenges here at Idaho State, just the fact that we're still working on building that winning tradition, and that's what you need here. It sure helps when you're coming off a 6-5 year, 7-4 year, or as Jeff has done, a national semifinal, and it really gets the kids hungry. They know when you make the playoffs, and I found this out at the other school I was at for a while. When you make the playoffs, when you go into your off season, there's something to that you could potentially lose at the end of the year, and that kind of motivates you that you want to make the playoffs. And that's what there needs to be. We got to make the playoffs first, so the kids realize that there's something that you're really, really practicing for, that you're really playing for during the off season. And when you miss the playoffs, you really lose that. So those are some of the things that were our obstacles here.
Now, Coach Cho, having won the last 4 rivalry games against Montana, what do you think it will take for you to beat the Grizzlies again this upcoming season?
Wait, can I record this one, Mary Lou?
All right.
I've got it recorded. Don't you worry, Coach Barnum.
I think it's a pretty simple recipe for our success in those games. And if you look at it, I think we've come close to 400 yards rushing in each one of those. And so I think just consistently doing what we do, regardless of the scoreboard. We were down 22 in Missoula 2 years ago, and we didn't change what we did a whole lot. We were able to complete a couple passes down the sideline. But, I mean, every team's different. Every situation's different. I'm sure they're hungry to get back on the good side of the column up there in Missoula. And for us, we're right now, quite honestly, that seems like 1,000 miles away. I'm hoping we can get back to working out on Monday. That's what I'm hoping. And so, I mean, I know this is going to be the theme that we're moving forward with, but quite honestly, we'll worry about them when we get to them. I hope we get to them. That's what I hope. And if we do, we got a pretty good blueprint for how to take care of it.
So now looking at how this time has been, this is a question for all of you. What creative ways have you used during the offseason to keep your team connected in these unconventional times? Coach Choate, we can start with you.
It's kind of been, I imagine all of us are pretty similar. We've relied on technology like we're using right now. But then there's been some things, I think our assistant coaches have been amazing. I know my son plays linebacker for us, and his position coach, Bobby Daly, they had a film critique of the Tiger King that kind of kept the guys engaged a little bit. I know one of our other assistant coaches did a scavenger hunt. And so they've kind of, tried to just do some fun things like that to, a contest of sending pictures within their group chat of what their workout is for that day, and just some things to try to connect these guys and motivate them. I think this has been the hardest job I've ever had, to be honest with you. People are like, well, are they going to pay you guys if they don't play? And I'm like, they ought to pay us more. I mean, this is dang hard. It's way easier to connect with human beings when you're in front of them, and to get a pulse on what's going on with your team when you're around them on a consistent basis. And I don't want to speak for the other guys, but I think this has been a huge challenge just in terms of keeping a kind of that grasp of what your guys need at that moment when you're not around them. And our primary job is to make sure that we meet the basic needs of our student athletes: food, shelter, and safety. And we want to do that. And it's way easier to do when we're around them and can connect with them. So I think we've all gotten creative, but I think that's probably been the most challenging part of this time.
Absolutely. Coach Barnum, let's hear from you. How have you been able to connect with your team during this time?
I'm sure Rob and myself will ride on Jeff this one. This technology, the game's changed on us, and Zoom meetings are not very personable. You don't get what you get in a one-on-one or a group meeting with body language, et cetera, and what their needs are, where you're going, where have you been, how are you, pulling them away after the meeting. All that stuff's gone. The stuff that the three on this, at least, I think are players, coaches, and that's how we live. That's how we thrive. That's how we build a football team and a program. But now we brought a lot of other people in our world, because now it's about their safety, and we can't come back unless it is safe for them. So now the trainers and doctors, and we're taking a little bit of a back. Well, what do we do here? Now the government's involved as far as coming back. So we're giving them all that information, right? But we're also trying to keep it fun, like Jeff said. We've had fishing tournaments that I've won each one. We've had some garden, just some goofy stuff, just to keep them engaged. But it's tough. This Zoomage is not college football.
That's for sure. It's not. I think there's a common theme here. It's difficult, but you are able to insert some fun things in there that you might not usually be able to do. Now, Coach Fennessy, what about you? How have you been connecting with your team?
Yeah, pretty much reiterate what they said, what Jeff and Bruce said. We were in the Zoom meeting world. There were some days where we'd have administrative staff Zoom meetings and go straight from that to coaches staff meeting, and some of the coaches might be a second late because they're having meetings with their kids, and it's a very difficult deal. We've been fortunate enough as here in Idaho that we've been back, even though the kids are back voluntarily June 1st. And we've been kind of around them at that point. And starting yesterday, we were given access, since we play in the early we play August 29th. So our access moved back a week, as opposed to everyone else. And so, yesterday was our first day really with access to the guys, and it was a good deal. Got to have some meetings with the guys, and we can continue that throughout the week.
Now, Coach Choate, I'm going to come back to you. Montana State is known for having a balanced attack on offense. Talk about how an offensive lineman like Lewis Kidd helps pave the way for the plays to happen.
He's a kid that came here actually as a defensive lineman. And one of the things, it was funny, when I worked for Muschamp at Florida, all of our D-line, all of our redshirt freshman O-line did all their individual with the D-line. And I asked him, I'm like, what's the deal here? And he says, well, they learn to strike. I mean, you teach offensive linemen, a lot of times they're going backwards, they're retreating, and I want these guys to learn to bite as young kids. And I thought it was an interesting approach, and we've kind of taken some of that here. And Lewis is one of several offensive linemen that started out their career on the defensive side of the ball for us and then transition. And I think it helps their aggressive. Lewis is a great big kid who's got a ton of physical tools. I mean, he's got all the measurables, very bright, was elected as a team captain. And I think he's stepped really seamlessly in a different way into the role that Lewis that Mitch Brott had for us a year ago in terms of the kind of the alpha in the room. And he's got some good lieutenants, guys like Connor Wood and Zach Red and Taylor Tuiasosopo and Jake Sessions. There's guys around him that I think prop him up. And I think that's been one of the reasons why he's stepped into such a positive role. One thing I wanted to add here, because I know we're getting short on time, and I just wanted to throw this out here because I think this is important to talk about. We talked a lot about the COVID thing and all that. 35% of my roster are African-American young men too. And I think that it's important for us to not forget that as challenging as things are right now, there's another layer for a certain portion of our rosters that are really important to discuss. And I hope that doesn't get lost in the discussion. I know that's something that I'm sure Rob and Bruce spend a lot of time counseling those young men, making sure that they're doing good, because it's a really confusing and difficult time for them. And I think the more that we can do to support them, that's important. I know the Big Sky's had some initiatives along those lines, but I just wanted to make sure I talked about that for a moment. And I think that's actually added to the difficulty of our job during this time. It's not just the COVID thing, but this social injustice piece that we're dealing with right now too. And I know I'm not going to take any more time, but I want to tell you, these two guys right here, they're really good football coaches, and they have two of the toughest jobs. I'm not sure there's a tougher job in Division I football than what Bruce Barnum has. And you never hear that guy complain. He's always positive. And I know the situation that they're dealing with at Idaho State with some of the state restrictions and finances. And so those guys are big time ball coaches, and I'm proud to, call them teammates in the Big Sky, so to speak.
Thank you for those words, Coach Choate. Coach Fennessy, I have another question for you. You're scheduled to host Northern Iowa in the non-conference, which will likely be first-ranked non-Big Sky team to come to Holt Arena in decades. What does a game like that do for your program?
That's something that when I came back here as the head coach, Idaho State for a long time had always played a Division II team early in the year. And one of the things that I presented to the athletic director and then when Pauline Theros took over, continued with her, was we need to get some non-conference 1AA. I like calling it 1AAs. I don't like all the letters and all that stuff. A little old school there, but we need to get some non-conference 1AA games. And just so happened Northern Iowa was looking for a game, home and home, a couple of years ago, and shoot, I didn't think they were going to be ranked number 2 and number 3 by the time we got to them, but that's a good solid 1AA game for us. It's very challenging, and frankly, a couple of years ago, I don't know if we were 6-5, and one of those wins was against a Division II team. I don't know if it kept us out of the playoffs or not. We had to win one of our last 2 games, but still, that hurt us down the road. They were saying, you only had 5 Division I wins, and so we've moved on to eliminating those Division II games and wanted to play some, like I said, some non-conference 1AAs. And I think we have North Dakota in the future, and I know Pauline, our athletic director, is looking forward to some other games. But this will be fun, getting a quality team out here into Holt Arena, and hopefully it'll be a warm day and kind of muggy inside, and whatever crowd they let us have, if we're allowed to have a crowd, makes it a tough place to play.
So Coach Choate, you did touch on the racial injustice that's going on, and this is a question that I do have for all of you. Between the pandemic and the fight for racial equality, what kind of conversations have you had with your team about everything that's happened in 2020 so far? So this will be our last question before we move on to the Twitter questions. But Coach Barnum, we'll start with you.
It's been like Jeff touched on. You talk about game changes. Between those two items, that's been our team. We've already put together a committee on what's going on, not COVID, what's going on with all the social injustice on the streets right now. We have a group working on that. I have a coach, that's led it. We haven't done a lot on it because we're on Zoom. In the back and forth, when you're looking at 92 guys on a computer screen, it's not what you want. So we have some exercises that we're going to do during our fall camp. Some pretty cool stuff, I think. There's some leaders here in Portland I reached out to join us and speak to our team, and because that's part of their lives. It's part of our lives right now. And I don't want that to just disappear. That's a big deal. But between that and the COVID, what a handful right now. Like Jeff said, everybody's got their fingers crossed on where this football season is going to go, because you read the newspapers about it. I'm not going to reiterate everything, but how these guys came back, they have this many tested. How are we going to practice? How am I going to go play these guys? What are those rules specifically? But that's a basket of stuff between social injustice on the streets, COVID, trying to get our people back, our student athletes, and help them through this, to guide them through this. But you know what? It's also pretty cool to be in a spot that we can open up that conversation with 107 student athletes and coaches and make a difference. Not on, and I'm jumping back and forth here and I'll let these guys talk, but one thing I talked to our guys about initially was your platform, and they're student athletes, we're coaches. Twitter doesn't have to be your platform. Instagram, here's how you can do things. But so there's some pretty interesting things, I think, my coaches and that we are doing to address what's going on in the country right now.
That's great. Coach Cho, is there anything that you want to add to what you said previously?
No, I just think it's a time for us to really listen to our student athletes of color and make sure they understand that we're here for them. And it's because this doesn't just affect African-American young men. I mean, we have Polynesian student athletes in Montana. We have Native Americans. And so it's a bigger issue than just one socioeconomic group. And we need to recognize that and do a good job of listening to people and providing opportunities, like Bruce said, for them to express what they're going through and how they're feeling about it, and try to hopefully that creates more dialogue. I do think that this is, I was great to hear him say, hey, we've got a great opportunity here too. I thought that, because I need to hear that, I mean, this ain't easy, and sometimes we feel like we're in this by ourselves. And I wish we could spend 2 hours probably talking as head coaches about some of the challenges we're facing right now. And so it's good to know that there's somebody out there that's experiencing the same difficulties, but also has this, hey, glass is half full type mentality that, there's an opportunity for us to lead and to create change. And I do really believe that we'll have some positive things come out of this kind of cloudy time that we're in right now.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Coach Fennessy, what kind of conversations have you had with your team?
Yeah, we were once again, we were fortunate that the guys were back here on a voluntary basis, but we felt it was imperative that we had a team meeting almost immediately, and obviously social distancing. Usually I make everybody sit close to the front. I said, you guys get 3 seats in between you, and they all looked at me like I was crazy for the first time. But we brought up some difficult discussions. We actually had 2 really good team meetings. Our staff is the most diverse staff on campus in terms of coaches of color and everything, and I let them. I discussed some of the things that were going on and how football, you talk about how if football is the most diverse group of people in any entity, perhaps except the military. And that's the first thing we talked about. And I mentioned, we had a coach got married in Oakland last year, and I said, if without football, my wife would have never gone up to AP's wedding up there in Oakland. I had to go to the Big Sky meetings, but without football, I would have never met Cameron Yancey, who's from Fairfax High School in Los Angeles and went to the University of Utah. And then I even went out with our players. We have a kid from Yelm, Washington, and he would have never met a kid from South Central had it not been for football. So football, brought this all together. And then I led our team. We really had some good leadership, get up and talk, and we opened it up. We said, hey, this is going to be uncomfortable, guys, but stand up and ask a question. It's not going to be divisive. It's not going to be negative. And we had some really, really good questions from kids in the room. And we grew from that, and we did it, twice. We didn't just do it once. And I said, we're not going to let this conversation end. We're going to continue. And then the second time around, we talked about what can we do, out in the community, and the kids threw a lot of ideas out there. And then also, you may or may not have known, there's a young man plays at Ohio State, Tommy Togiai, who was here in town. He and a couple of our players, they went to the police station, and really the chief of police, Roger Shai, in our town, he travels with us. He works out with the team and all that. And I'm sorry I'm getting long-winded here, but I was really proud of what they did. They went to him and said, what can we do? We don't want it to be we want it to be a unity deal. So by Wednesday of that first week, when all the stuff was going on, we had about a 2,000 to 3,000 person unity march with the police to show that, hey, it's not, us against them. We're all in this together. And I was really proud of Ramo Trevino and Garrett Crane and like I said, Tommy Togiai, who I offered him about 4 scholarships when during the walk, and he still wouldn't, even though he still went to Ohio State, but I tried to get him here. But our kids did a really good job of organizing that and making sure that they did the right thing there.
I did see that, Coach Fennessy. I'm glad that you talked about that, and I'm glad that you all are taking advantage of this opportunity, as Coach Barnum said, to speak on those issues. So now it's time for some questions from Big Sky football fans. These questions come from Twitter. Coach Cho, I have the first one for you from Ty Vincent 47. He asked, have you seen a major difference in the level of mental and athletic preparedness because of the players having extra time at home?
Well, it's really hard to say because, we haven't been around our guys. We were able to bring them back voluntarily on the first, and then we've had, some pullback here and pullback there. And I think that our guys were awesome for about 2.5 months. That's what I think. I think they were unbelievable. Did well in the classroom, stay engaged. We kind of built a schedule for them to follow. And I think this roller coaster they're on right now has been really difficult for them. And so I think that's one thing that I hope administrators understand in terms of making decisions is we need these kids. I mean, we just got to quit zigzagging. Whatever it is, stick to it. Get on the railroad track and go. Quite honestly, nobody, not Dr. Fauci, not our health experts in Gallatin County, nobody has the right answers. And I don't think anybody's going to blame anybody for that. But we need to stick to a plan. And I think that's been the most difficult thing for our guys in terms of staying mentally engaged, because it's very discouraging when, hey, we amp up and we're excited, let's get back to work. And then the next day, well, hey, we got to back off for over the weekend or whatever, So I think we all know that this is a real virus. It's an airborne deal. It's not going to be contained. People are going to get sick. We've got to do what we can to mitigate it. We got to make a decision whether we're going to do this or not. And if we do, then we got to go. Unfortunately, because of the lack of leadership at higher levels, none of us have any guidelines. We're all Bruce is operating under a different system than Rob's operating. I'm operating under a different system because in Montana it's county by county than Bobby is. So it's the craziest thing ever.
Right. Such unconventional times for sure. Coach Barnum, this question comes from .1 Love. You are known for your good humor and ability to lighten the mood. Who is your favorite comedian?
My favorite comedian. Joe, help me out here.
Seemed like a Dave Chappelle guy to me, man. I don't know.
Chappelle, Belushi, there's so many.
Maybe the cable guy. Come on.
Bernie Mac, that guy, made me laugh consistently. I can't just bring it to one, Mary Lou's. It was probably just my household. If you didn't have humor growing up in the Barnum household, you got your ass whipped. But you dealt with life with humor. That's how I was brought up. And there's a heck of a lot of people a lot funnier than me. The two of them right here, because, Jeff just mentioned in his conversation. Now I'm having come on. I'm bouncing around. But, no, Bobby. He mentioned Bobby. Okay, hey, we're on Zoom here. Just cut the record. He mentioned Bobby, and just out of curiosity, just how you bring humor into a talk like this. Coach Choate, where is Bobby the head coach at?
Where do I think he's at right now?
No, what university? What university is Bobby at?
What university?
Bobby Hogg. Is that
One over the hill.
No, what university is it?
We're just saying, hey man, we don't get too involved in that. I mean, I know we want to downplay this. I think people get too excited about that game here in the state of Montana. I think that's
they do. It's a fun one to watch for FCS football. But like you said, there's a long road before that. Mary Lou's, back to your question of comedians. I don't know. Next question. Thank you.
We're getting the rap signal here.
Gotta reel him in. Now, Coach Fennessy, what is something that you learned as an assistant coach that you've applied as a head coach?
Oh, geez. I don't know. Jumping into this head coach thing was weird. I as an assistant coach, well, I think as a head coach, I try to, fall back on the things that as an assistant I didn't like and kind of try to avoid doing that with my assistant coaches. I don't know. You kind of see, I've worked for several, not a whole bunch, but several, and you kind of see some of the pitfalls, some things that maybe you didn't think worked well or were exceptional, and you try to avoid those or emphasize them. So as you go through this, I think I was 25 years in as an assistant before getting this job as a head coach here, and you see, you draw from your experiences, good, bad, right, wrong, and different, and kind of tailor your style to that.
Now, Coach Choate, back to you. This question's from Dan_my_man. He said, you've had your fair share of coaching roles, but what was it like to get the call for your first head coaching job? And have you tried to emulate any particular coach you've worked with, or do you enjoy your own style?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I was excited. I never thought that I would, quite honestly, get the job. I thought there was a lot of really good quality candidates for this position, and I was on the road recruiting for the University of Washington, and I didn't lose a whole lot of sleep about whether I was going to get this job or not. So I was a little bit surprised. I'd interviewed for a couple other head coaching jobs, and one of the things these guys can tell you, these jobs are really hard to get. And then when you get them, you wonder why they're so dadgum hard to get, because who would want this job? But and to kind of piggyback on what Rob said, like the difference between being an assistant coach and being a head coach, Mars and Earth. I mean, they're so far apart. The job is just so different. The only thing that's similar is there's a coach title somewhere in there. And so I think that was the thing for me. I was very excited, obviously, to get my opportunity. I don't know that I emulate anybody. I mean, obviously, I worked for Chris Peterson for 8 years. That's probably a guy that worked for at two different locations, one where we were kind of inheriting a pretty awesome culture, and one where we were trying to build a good culture. And so I probably use a lot of Chris Peterson stuff. But I've actually been described as the redneck Chris Peterson. And so maybe that would be how I would leave it.
Okay, good answer.
Here, can I add one more thing to after being an assistant for a long, long time? All of a sudden, you're finding out that you're not invited to a bunch of the staff. There's a bunch of staff get-togethers, and all of a sudden you're finding out you're on the pay no mind list. So that's the one thing. Is like, I tell my wife, yeah, where's everybody? Oh, well, they're all doing this. I'm here with you. So that's the one thing. All of a sudden, you're not included in the fun anymore.
Okay, so we will end on this last question for all of you from the Big Sky Commissioner. He said, if the three of you were stuck in an escape room, who would be the one to get you guys out? Coach Choate, we'll start with you.
What's an escape?
Time out. What's an escape room?
Oh, goodness.
I've done one when we were at UNLV. When we were down at UNLV, Las Vegas has a bunch of those things. And there's a coach at Sacramento State, Craig Paulson, who you two probably know well. Our families went to one, and they're really a pretty fun deal. You go through and you have to discover clues in these different rooms, and once you discover the clue, then it takes you to the next room, and you have a time to do it. If you don't get it, it's a fun deal. And I actually, I'm going to say it's going to be me. Okay, one, because those two haven't done it before. I know it, but I actually found a couple of key clues in a couple of the rooms to get us out with all the families there. And that was, I'm one of the lower intelligence people, especially with the Paulson clan. They're a smart group of people. And with my daughter and all that, and I was proud of myself finding a couple clues to get us out of the room. So I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna say here, I'll get us out.
I definitely think that's fair if they don't know what an escape room is. So we could change it to, if you're stranded on a desert island, who would be the one to get you guys off? For those of you,
I just say, like, Tennessee's awesome at this stuff. I'm like processing like the anxiety that I have in my own life. Why would I want to create any more? I feel like I'm in an escape room right now, to be honest with you.
I think that's fair. Coach Barnum, anything you want to add to that?
No, Mary Lou's, thank you for everything. I mean, this has been, I like the two you put me with, and as far as the island, I would probably have Choate talk to the trees, and he could keep a conversation going with the fish and the trees, and that would keep him busy. Rob and I would go down and try to get the boat running, right, to get off the island. I think that's about how it would work, because Jeff's enthusiasm, it would be a community, right? A community of trees.
I love it. You painted us quite the picture. Thank you, Coaches Barnum, Choate, and Fennessy, for joining us on the Big Sky virtual kickoff. It is always a pleasure. We're ready for our next set of head coach interviews for the 2020 Big Sky Football Virtual Kickoff. I'm joined by UC Davis head coach Dan Hawkins, Weber State head coach Jay Hill, Northern Colorado head coach Ed McCaffrey, and Sacramento State head coach Troy Taylor. Welcome, and thanks for joining me today to talk Big Sky football. We're going to jump right into our first set of questions. This question is for all of you. What makes the Big Sky Conference competitive from top to bottom? And Coach Taylor, we'll start with you on that question.
Well, I think first and foremost, there's, great level of coaching. I think the guys are going to be very well prepared each week going into it. A lot of creative minds in all three phases of the game. And then we got really good players that have chosen to come to the Big Sky. And I think obviously the notoriety of our league has helped draw great athletes, student athletes to our conference. And, it's really authentically when I say that each week, you feel like you're in a battle. Anybody can beat you, and which makes it a fun league.
Coach Hawkins.
Yeah, I would echo that. I know when I went to the first Big Sky head coaches meeting, I kept looking around the room going, So there's a lot of really good coaches and tremendous tradition in the league. I grew up in Northern California and obviously followed Boise State when they were back in the Big Sky, and a lot of national champions. There's very few teams in this league, including Northern Colorado. Ed's on here, but they won a D2 national championship. Almost every stadium you go to, there's a national championship banner hanging there. But yeah, I think people have upgraded in all their facilities and great coaching, and we've seen a number of our players go on and play in the National Football League. So we know everybody has really good players.
Coach McCaffrey?
Yeah, well, I'd have to echo that sentiment. The coaching's phenomenal. Some of these guys I've known, like Coach Hawkins, met, I think, probably back in the 90s. Been following his career for a long time. The coaching is really, really good. It's actually a little bit intimidating. There's a wealth of experience and success in our conference. I also think, after watching film, unfortunately for me, there's a lot of talent out there on other teams. I think we have a talented group as well. Our players, for whatever reason, are sometimes guys that maybe were late bloomers or missed a junior year, but for whatever reason, there's some really talented players that got overlooked and some who chose to come play for us. So I think the talent level is high. And I also think just kind of the attitude, like our kids have a chip on their shoulder. Somebody overlooked me. Someone didn't value me. And they've got something to prove, and you can tell because that's the way they play.
Coach Hill, what would you like to add to that?
Well, I just think echoing the other coaches, the players, there's way better talent in this league than most people think. So that's one thing that makes it unique. And then the other thing is from top to bottom, every week you're in an absolute battle, and you really, quite frankly, you beat up on each other. The good thing about that is the people or the teams that get out of it are really prepared for the playoffs. So our top 2 or 3 teams can play with anyone in the country. It's a bloodbath to get there, but it's mainly what they just said. Great coaches, great players, and I love the schemes in this conference because it's like every week people play with no fear. They just absolutely let it rip, and you better be ready for anything.
Now, Coach Taylor, why should people not be writing the Hornets off after the announcement of Kevin Thompson's departure?
I think regardless, Kevin's a very good football player and a great kid, but we got a great team besides that. Got a lot of guys returning. I'd like to think we got a little momentum and understanding of what it takes and some confidence. But, it's a new year, and we feel like we got to prove ourselves even more so this year than we did last year. But we feel confident of the group that we have.
Now, Coach Hawkins, this year you embark on a season without Jake Mayer at the helm for the first time since you returned to UC Davis. What kind of offensive shift does that create for the Aggies?
We're going with the no quarterback offense. So can't talk a lot about it. Jay will get to see it here early in the conference season, but no, he was great. He signed with Calgary up in the Canadian League, and he'll have a great career there. Really tremendous leader on our football team. But Tim Plow's one of the great coordinators in the country, really smart, bright, does a great job with our quarterback room. And we feel like we've got a ton of guys there that have an opportunity to play. Don't know who that is right now at this point, but really feel like we'll be able to bring those guys along. When Jake first played for us, he was not even here until the summer. So he had to finish up his AA in junior college before he got here. So we have guys who have been in the program for a couple of years. So we're a lot farther ahead than when Jake was here when he first started. But, yeah, we like our guys a lot. I mean, things always ebb and flow a little bit, but really like the quarterbacks that we have.
Now, Coach McCaffrey, why did you want to coach college football, and what prompted you to choose Northern Colorado?
Yeah, I just follow my heart. An opportunity present itself, and I thought about it and prayed about it, and followed my heart up to Greeley. And I do want to, take this time to thank our president, Andy Feinstein, and our athletic director, Darren Dunn, for believing in me and allowing me to pursue my dream of coaching. It all started for me up at Northern Colorado. So I'm really proud and honored to serve as our head coach. Spent 7 or 8 years there as a Denver Bronco practicing at training camp. And I have many, many fond memories. Met a lot of wonderful people, great community. They cheered us on during practices. They still remember those wonderful days in the late 90s where we were in Super Bowls. But, I spent time with my teammates. I made friends, lifelong friends that I competed with and lined up alongside, and remember the practices and the meeting rooms and the dorms and the dining facility. My wife, Lisa, would bring our boys to practice, and they'd run around the fields. They'd play catch, high five, Rod or Shannon or John, and maybe carry a helmet off a field or something like that. For those of us that have kids, they know how cool that is to watch your kid do that or show up to practice. And so, it has a special place in my heart and a special place in my life. And so, again, very appreciative of the opportunity, and I promise to do my best to make them proud.
Fantastic. Now, Coach Hill, with Josh Davis and other key playmakers returning on offense, what potential does that unit have?
Well, there's a lot of potential there. We've got 4 returning starters on the offensive line. We've got every skill position coming back from last year's team. We lose Jake Constantine, but the reality is it seems like every team that's won a championship in this league is heck, they got a new quarterback every year, and it doesn't matter. The coaching's so good, they just reload, and the next guy steps up, and they just dominate. And I think Troy was a great example of that last year. Dan, when he first joined the league with Jake Mary, I mean, we've mentioned those two guys. Everyone just reloads. And, we're going to be in for a battle. No matter who is returning as starter on any of these teams, you're in for a battle.
Now, a question for all of you. The Big Sky is replacing a number of top quarterbacks from last season. How does that affect the conference race? Coach Taylor, we'll start with you.
Yeah, obviously there's an effect. Maybe early in the week, early in the year, people got to get adjusted, and guys that haven't played got to get a little confidence and a little rhythm. But again, just to echo what Jay said, there's such good coaches in this league that they're going to adapt, and there's good enough depth on everybody's roster that they will adjust. And it'll be a talented team that you're playing against every week.
Coach Hawkins, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes they're so far down the schedule, you feel like you're going to, have an opportunity to see them on film plenty of times to get ready. You have people. Jay knows what our approach is and how we do things. He's not going to change dramatically from that. So you're kind of getting ready for the whole package. And he's obviously played against Tim Plow a ton as well when he was at Northern Arizona. So it becomes more of a programmatic approach a little bit. And then everybody's got their own twist to it. But yeah, it's kind of some teams are so far down the schedule. I kind of know who we play the first quarter of the schedule. If you try to tell me what it was in late October, I couldn't even tell you right now. So we'll figure it out when we get there.
Coach McCaffrey, the biggest challenge, the Big Sky Conference replacing a number of top quarterbacks from last season. How do you feel that affects the conference race?
Yeah, no, there's an incredible amount of talent in the conference in general, definitely at the quarterback position. These teams in our conference put up a lot of points. So defensively, that's challenging. Look, I haven't even gotten that far. I'm new. I'm a first-year college head coach. I've been told it takes 3 or 4 years to kind of get the feel of it and to feel comfortable and understand everything that you're doing. So right now, we've been focusing just on culture. We can't look too far ahead. We need to take care of our locker room before we look too far ahead and even face our opponent. We're trying to show up, work hard, have fun, play to win, believe in loyalty, integrity, strong work ethic, positive attitude, acceptance. Everything's earned, not given. It's a meritocracy. We don't have any starters. We don't have any. So we're competing at every position. We took everybody's numbers away from last year, made them earn them back. So that's where we are. We're at the very grassroots stages of becoming the team that we hope to be. And I think that's our focus right now, just trying to bring our team together and unite before we even start looking at opponents. And unfortunately, we didn't have a spring ball, so that really made it a little more difficult. But we've made the most of it with virtual meetings, and we've done everything that we can up to this point. Like everybody else, this has been a challenging year.
Coach Hill, that same question for you. Big Sky replacing a number of top quarterbacks from last season. How does that affect the conference race, in your opinion?
I don't think it affects it at all. A couple years ago, Eastern Washington placed for the national championship. They did it with a first-year quarterback, Eric Berrier, and he ends up being one of the best players in the league, and he hadn't started yet, and they go to the national championship. And like I said, I just mentioned the quarterbacks that Sac State and UC Davis are losing from last year. They did the same thing. It was either a new coach or a new quarterback, and they go all the way to a conference championship in those years. And we've done it with Jay Constantine his first year, and kept Stephen Cantwell the year before, where a brand new quarterback takes over and you still play for a conference title. And I just think the coaches have done such a phenomenal job with that position. It doesn't matter who takes over; those coaches are going to do a great job with them.
I think there should be less blitzing, Jay. Less blitzing. New quarterbacks just kind of go with all-star rules. Just play a base front, base coverage. That'd be a lot better for us.
Yeah, that might help us. Might help us if you just sat in one coverage and I could tell that guy that that's all that was coming. That might help. But in North Dakota State, a good example of that last year, right? North Dakota State took a true freshman all the way to the national championship. And so I just think in those elite teams, those top 20, 25 teams, and we have 4 or 5 of them in this league at least, the coaching's so good. I don't get too hung up on who's at quarterback, who's not, because any one of those guys, even the backup, could beat you if you're not ready.
Now, Coach Taylor, what is the biggest challenge you face staying on top instead of just reaching for it this season?
Sorry, repeat that question.
What is the biggest challenge you face staying on top instead of just reaching for it this season?
Yeah, we don't feel like we're on top. We're trying to every day trying to fight and crawl to be consistent. And I mean, I think the biggest challenge, honestly, is having come in here the year before and building a culture and then not seeing your guys, basically for a number of months, 3 or 4 months. And I don't know about the other guys, but it feels very uneasy. There's just a strange feeling about it. Coaches are so rhythmic in their schedule and what they should be doing. And I don't know, it just feels odd. So that probably is the biggest challenge. And hoping your guys are doing the right thing in the off season or the time that we weren't around them. And then, hopefully having an opportunity to play and practice. I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but that's been the biggest challenge in the second year. But, a guy like Ed hasn't really had a chance to be around his team probably a whole lot at all. So, which is probably even more of a challenge. So I would say for me, I know it's a unique year, but that's been by far the biggest challenge.
Now, Coach Hawkins, for years, the Big Sky has excelled in quarterback play. Your league title 2 years ago involved key defensive philosophies, particularly against Weber State and Montana State, that led to wins. What do you think of this shift?
Well, let me just correct you one. We have not led any wins against Weber right now. So that's we're calling in Harry Potter and every wizard we can get to try to make that happen. So no, there's this league is really special, and it's really, as Jay said, there's a ton of variety, there's a ton of uniqueness. It spans a lot of geography, and you get a lot of different ideas and a lot of influences from a bunch of different places. So it really is a fun task to try to match wits with everybody. Because you're not seeing I remember back in the old days when I was at Boise and we were in the what was the Big West then. I said it seemed like all the defensive coordinators went to a clinic and they're all doing basically the exact same thing, and you just don't see that anymore. So it leads to really focusing on yourself of how good you can be, and then being able to have some adjustments week in and week out, and or series in and series out, because there really is. I've coached a lot of football. I've been around a while, and there's as good at coaching going on in this league as I've seen anywhere. That includes the Big 12. We got a lot. There's a lot of good schemes coming out of this league. It's tough.
Coach McCaffrey, how would you describe the style of play we should expect to see from your team?
It's the same exact as last year. So just watch all that film, guys. It's the same thing.
That's what we thought. Yeah, we said, let's just go with that.
I'm not changing a thing. It's the same.
All right, well, Coach Hill, Weber State is known for its defense. What is the key to reloading at positions like your defensive line that lose a lot of talent? You're on mute, Coach Hill.
I'm sorry. Last year we lost all 3 linebackers and our four secondary guys, and 3 of the 4 secondary guys were first-team all-conference guys, and both starting middle linebackers were all-conference. And we reloaded and the next guy steps up, and we had another good defensive year last year. So, I mean, that's part of college football, right? You're going to reload at least every 4 years at every position, and that's assuming they started as freshmen. That's just part of what we do. You hopefully have your backups learning until it's their time, and when it is their time, they step up and play like the guy ahead of them or better. And that's part of the fun of coaching. That's part of the fun of being in this league is just you better reload or you're going to go from the top to the bottom really fast if you don't.
Right. Now, Coach Taylor, what do you enjoy about calling plays and coaching offense?
Well, that's kind of the reason, and I got into it at the beginning, just the strategy and of football. I love it. I love that part of it. For me, it's very exciting. As Dan talked about, it's really challenging to be able to adapt to really smart people that you're going against. And then, especially in college football, just the changing rosters and adjusting and learning about the kids and all those things. I really love it. And I love that you get to move on the next week, no matter what happens. So to me, it's the fun part of the game. And the fact that you can get beat every single week if you don't bring your best, to me is really exciting and what I like most about it.
Coach Hawkins, what does Alonzo Gilliam bring to the table?
Woo! It's just hard to really express what a tough, competitive kid he is. We had some injuries at running back last year, and Jay knows we like to run a lot of different personnel in the game. And we run a lot of plays. There were 2 games that Lonzy took every rep at tailback, every play. And it's tough to describe just how tough he is and how competitive he is. He's a talented receiver. He can make you miss. But, man, just what a dependable, solid, going to be here every day, going to bring it every day. Just the kind of guy. He's one of our team captains this year. But just a super tough, competitive kid.
Coach McCaffrey, since taking on your role, what advice have you gotten or who have you bounced ideas off of?
Well, I've asked obviously friends and peers about, coaching at the collegiate level. Of course, I have 4 boys that have all gone through that process and, went through it myself. So I have a little bit of an understanding of the players in our system and the challenges that they have. But, everyone's pretty much echoed the same sentiment is that, we're really blessed. I'm blessed to be able to do what I love to do for a living. Everyone recommends surrounding yourself with the right people. I think all of the coaches would agree with that. I'm absolutely extremely excited about our coaching staff. Bringing in Coach Baldwin, who was my receivers coach at Stanford. Wow, look at that connection. How many years have gone by since I first met Coach Baldwin? To bring him back was pretty special. Coach Moyval, who I've really grown to love and respect. Coach Austin, Coach Armour, who's been in the game a really long time and has a pulse for the kids in our program. My son Max is helping out. I never envisioned that when I took the job. That was icing on the cake. And on the defensive side of the ball, we got a young, really incredibly talented staff coaching on the defensive side of the ball with Coach Darnell jumping up to the college ranks, and Coach Coaxum, who's coached both at college and every level, really, college to pros with the Broncos. Got to hand him his ring when Broncos won Super Bowl 50. And, Coach T. Tavares, Coach Bowens, he's been awesome, Coach Mo. So, just a great group of coaches who have really made this experience fun so far. I miss those guys. We're kicked off campus still. I'm a big people person, and I miss being around those guys. It's not the same virtually. But I think, if you have people that are aligned in their mission and their vision, and you have the right people in the room, you have a chance for success, and hopefully have a chance to make a big difference in the lives of our players and have a positive influence on their lives.
Absolutely. Coach Hill, your Wildcats have been very successful against Missouri Valley teams the last couple of years. What is the secret?
No, it's college football. You try to out tough the team across from you. That's one secret that you try to do. Being able to run the football and stop the run on the other side is critical when you're playing those teams. If you can't stop the run when you're playing the Missouri Valley, they're just going to pound you to death, and it's going to be miserable. But there's a lot of good teams. When you look at South Dakota State, North Dakota State, I mean, they're just from top to bottom. Northern Iowa, who we played last year, it's like our league. They're very well coached. They're tough. They've got talent, and they play the game the right way. That's what you're up against each week, and I think the only way you combat it is by doing the same thing back to them.
Now, another question for all of you, and it's been touched on a little bit, but are there any things that you've learned through the times we're going through that you will take with you into future years, you know, considering the unconventional times that we're in? Coach Hawkins, we can start with you on that one.
Well, I think life is about reinvention, and our world continues to spin faster and faster every year. And for some of the guys, and I know Ed would say this, but people go, "Oh, football is football," and it's not. Football has changed a great deal. I mean, everything. And so you have to be flexible, and you have to adapt, and you have to adjust. And I think this situation just, again, forces that issue. So to me, it's just continuing to reinvent yourself and control what you can control. And people hate all that coach speak stuff, but that's what it really emphasizes. We talk about ownership within our football program, where, hey, now it's because none of us have had to get to be around our guys as much as we want to, and they have the kind of personal influences we'd like. So they've kind of got to go out on their own and lead themselves and lead others and take care of business. And so I think it just magnifies all the little items that we're trying to do within our football program. But there's a lot of ways to get it done, and we're finding out even more ways that nobody even imagined before.
Coach Taylor, what have you learned in these past few months that you'll be taking with you in future years?
Yeah, I think what Coach Hawkins said about adaptivity and flexibility is what we talk a lot about here. It changes so quickly that you can't really get too far ahead of yourself, and then being able to adapt and change quickly. I think this season's a great example. And I think I probably knew this one, but really came to the forefront of what social creatures we are, and how important it is for our guys to be around each other. And the challenges, you know, with this COVID virus is, you know, we have protocols and keeping them safe, but you watch these guys as they leave the field, and the first thing they do is come together and want to talk and be around each other. So you realize how important the social aspect is of teammates. And I think all the coaches here would talk about how much they miss being able to see their guys, give them a hug, talk with them. And it really is not the same virtually. It's hard to have that personal connection, but we're adapting, and hopefully we'll get back to whatever normal is here soon. But learning something new every day. I never knew about Zoom before. I just do a phone call, and you know now I feel pretty good about it. So I learned a little bit about that.
There we go, Coach McCaffrey. What about you?
Again, I've just been so impressed and proud of our players for using their platform, using their voice, continuing to educate themselves, to listen, to learn. Very proud of them. I'm still getting to know them. I don't know everyone on a really, you know, tight-knit, close personal basis yet, because we got kicked off campus basically as soon as I was allowed to meet with the players. But I was around enough of our guys to know we got a great group of future leaders. These guys are going to transform the world for good. And I think I speak for everyone. We as coaches are in such a unique position and have such a unique platform. I think our goal, all of us, you know, we want to provide a welcoming and inclusive environment for all of our players. And while we're unifying them as a team, in football, it's always been about team. You know, we respect and include every single player on our team. Everyone is included. No one is excluded. We choose team over everything else. And I think I speak for all of us. We want to create a brotherhood through a shared sacrifice. We want to show the world what it's like to be part of something bigger than ourselves, to work together. We got guys from all different walks of life, all over the country, all over the world, all different ethnicities and backgrounds and religions and likes and dislikes. And we come together to work hard, to be part of something bigger than ourselves, to pursue a common goal. And I think we have the ability, and our players now understand that. We have the ability to be the change we want to see in the world through our actions, not just our words. So we want to at UNC, and I'm sure all the coaches would agree, we want to be examples to the rest of the world of what it means to unite and to be one.
Absolutely. Coach Hill, what have you learned through the times we're going through that you'll take with you in future years?
Well, in today's world of social media and everything going on, I've learned I don't know who to trust. And that's part of the problems that I think everyone's facing is, I mean, how dangerous is this virus? How many people are really catching it and all this stuff? It's become a nightmare on trying to track what's real and what's not real. So what it forces you to do is rely on those that you most care about, the players, the other coaches, your families. I've learned that what's most important in life is obviously those things. And then, like Troy said, I've got a little more tech savvy. I didn't know anything about Zoom before this. And I've learned a little bit more on how to communicate with the players the way they communicate with each other. So, I mean, I guess that's a positive, but I wish there was more trust in this world and less divisiveness, and we had a way of knowing what was real and what wasn't real, because I think that's what everybody's yearning for through this.
Would agree with that for sure. Now, although it's been touched on, our next set of questions will be related to COVID-19 and social injustice. So this is a question for all of you. Between the pandemic and the fight for racial equality, what kind of conversations have you had with your team about everything that's happened in 2020 so far? Coach Hawkins, we'll start with you on that question.
Besides that? Is that what you said?
No, sorry. I said between the pandemic and the fight.
Oh, between. I thought you said besides. Is there anything else? I don't know. There's nothing.
No.
Well, I think from the jump, obviously with the COVID, we just talked about flexibility and adapting and that. And with the social justice, we've kind of leaned in on that to begin with, as I'm sure a lot of these coaches do anyway. As Ed mentioned, our locker rooms are probably what in many cases society would aspire to be. We have an African diaspora unit on our campus. When these types of issues crop up, we always discuss them on our team. And of course, we've leaned in harder on all of this. We have a ton of meetings and discussion groups, and we're all trying to learn and educate ourselves and get better and improve. And much like some of these guys have said, I think to me it's one thing to post something on social media or say something, but it's another to do something, and we want to be able to do things. And right now we're certainly in a communication phase, but as we continue to kind of normalize, we want to be able to enact procedures and policies and actions that in fact help improve the climate for sure. We all acknowledge there's a huge issue there. There's a huge void. And we're fortunate that we get to work with these guys because they are going to be the future leaders of the world and companies and communities. And hopefully we can get some of these guys to take on some huge leadership roles as they go forward, because we've got them. We've got them, and they're well-rounded and they're well-educated people. But yeah, it's been a huge focus of ours from the jump. Obviously, we're football coaches and we're playing football, and we have to be able to do that. But we've kind of embraced both the flexibility of the COVID and the social justice issues with the same kind of fervor.
Coach Taylor, what would you like to add to that? What kind of conversations have you had with your team?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the racial injustice, I've had an opportunity to talk to a number of our Black players, and you know, for me, it was really enlightening to hear the experiences that they've had. You know, a lot of our guys just quietly go about their work. They don't complain about anything, and then having a chance to really kind of feel what they feel and what they've been through, like I said, was really kind of life-changing for me. And to see the pain in their eyes and how they look at things. And, you know, it takes a while to get them to talk about it. But for me, it was an experience that definitely opened up my eyes to the things that they have to deal with day in and day out. Talking about incredible kids that have to deal with things that just aren't fair. So certainly been a learning experience for me. And then, you know, we're all about love here. So we just really try to focus on loving our guys and making sure they feel great in our environment. They feel happy and accepted. They get to be who they are, best version of themselves. And So I feel good about that. And any way we can improve and learn on that, we're certainly open to doing that.
Coach McCaffrey, what kind of conversations have you had with your team?
Yeah, obviously I touched on some of that in my last answer. Probably got ahead of myself. But also, we've met with our players and our coaches and had some pretty intense conversations, both as an entire team, but also in breakout sessions with our position coaches and our players regarding social injustice and how we as a team can be the change we want to see in the world. And again, I'm just so proud of our players for using their platform and voice and educating themselves, again, listening, learning. And these guys are going to transform the world for good. You know, we're about good over evil, love over hate. Obviously, it goes without saying, it sounds crazy to have to say it, we denounce racism, denounce discrimination, denounce oppression, denounce any kind of police brutality or any other kind of brutality. And these are all things that we discussed and talked about. But our team has been on the same page. Again, I'm a new coach and young and trying to get to know every single player individually as well as I can. But we're pretty much on the same page. I think most locker rooms are that way. It's all for one and one for all, you know, providing that inclusive environment for everybody. Everyone's included, no one's excluded. And we preach tolerance and acceptance. So these are things that we were able to do as a football team, which is why I think it's the greatest team sport in the world. Regarding the coronavirus, I agree. Man, it's hard to figure out what to do. You know, we've abided by all of the state of Colorado safety protocols and guidelines. Every state is different. We as coaches have to not only abide by, you know, potentially national laws, but also state laws and our own campus regulations, which may be more stringent than what our state is advising. Not only that, it's a fluid environment where things change daily. So look, I think patience is a virtue in this case. We need to weigh the challenges of providing a safe working environment for our players and our coaches and our staff, while still finding a way to have productive practices that prepare our players to play and be safe once we enter into competition, with the damaging effects, if we are quarantined or sent home, of dealing with mental health issues and depression and parents being unemployed and changing the family dynamic. I mean, these are such complicated issues. I'm just trying to listen and learn and take the advice from our president and our athletic director and the Big Sky Conference and the state of Colorado, and we're doing the best we can to adapt to a very fluid environment.
Right, definitely a number of complex issues. Coach Hill, what kind of conversations have you been having with your team?
Well, I think all of these coaches have hit upon the fact that we believe in football. We have one of the most diverse populations that there is in the country. And quite frankly, I believe we're an example to the rest of the country on how we should be. I mean, I've got Polynesian players that grew up in the islands that never were around white or African-American players. And I've got African-American players that didn't have hardly any white people in their high schools, or a kid that grew up in a small town, Idaho, or a small town, Utah, and they weren't around African-American players per se. And then you put them all together and quite frankly, they love each other and they get along and they fight for each other. And isn't that the example that we really want for this country? I had an opportunity about a month ago or so to sit down with every player after the George Floyd incident. And we were in groups of 17 players, and all we did is say, talk. I don't care. You just speak your mind. If you believe in Black Lives Matter, you don't believe in it, speak your mind. Let's get this out so that we can have a close-knit team and make sure that this doesn't divide us. And for our white players to listen to what some of the African-American players have gone through growing up, I thought it was very eye-opening to them to just hear those stories, and they grew closer and they loved each other more when they left there. And I thought that was huge for a team to be able to do that in that small setting to where I could see them all. My wife was in that meeting with us. And I know one thing, I grew closer to them and gained a much better appreciation for what players go through. Since that time, I've been able to meet with the chief of police. I've been able to meet with state senators. I've been able to meet with the mayor of Ogden just to try to see what we can do. How can we move the needle and actually make a difference? Because a lot of people post stuff on social media, and that's all it is, a post. It doesn't move the needle. It doesn't change things. And we're actually trying to get our players out in front of it and build relationships with the police officers and actually make a difference in this world on how we can move forward. I think that what's happened in the last month will really define this country on where we end up 10 years from now. And I hope it does. I hope it really is a thing that spurs change.
That is so good. Thank you all for your words on that. So switching gears back to COVID, there are a lot of things to take into account with health and safety in regards to COVID, and that is something that changes so fluidly. How did it impact your program in the spring, and how have you been navigating the past couple of months? Now, I know some of you have briefly touched on that, but if there's anything you would like to add to that, Coach Taylor, we'll start with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously not having spring football was an adaptation. And then also, being able to follow them academically and not having them on campus and being able to monitor how they were doing. Our university did a great job of giving a little bit of leeway in communication. And I think it was so different for everybody. But that was, for me, really concerning how they were going to do academically. And our guys ended up having a great semester. And so, again, not to say the same words over and over again, but adaptivity and flexibility, just being able to change in a moment's notice. We could get to the end of the day today and things could completely change. So you can't complain about it. Everybody's, for the most part, in kind of the same boat. We just got to be able to adjust. We got great leadership on our coaches here in this conference, and our president of our university, our athletic director, and I know the guys feel the same way about their place. So we, just work together, really day-to-day goals and taking small steps to kind of keep our guys safe, but also trying to get them ready and prepared for a season.
Coach Hawkins, what would you like to add to that?
We were fortunate. We got our winter ball in, not by genius, but by luck. So we did get our 15 practices in. We start right after signing day, pretty much. So we were able to get that in. We're also fortunate because we're one of the few schools that have a med center that has UC Davis on it. So we've been able to use not only their resources, but their intellectual property. And I think we've done a nice job of kind of staying out in front of it. We do have the ability to test people and the resources to be able to do that, which is a great advantage, I think, for us being associated with that. So our people have really been on this from the jump, and our team doc, he's kind of on the COVID committee anyway, so he's really tapped into what's going on. So I think we've managed it well. We were able to test everybody before they came back, and that's been a real benefit. So we've been working out for a while now in small groups and trying to progress safely towards the season. We'll see. I think the next couple of weeks is really going to be telling. We'll see what happens based off of some of these schools going conference-only schedules. But been really proud to be part of UC Davis because you have a lot of intellectual property, and it's great to have a med school associated with your university.
Fantastic. Coach McCaffrey, how did COVID affect your program in the spring, and how have you been navigating these past few months?
Well, unfortunately, we were forced to cancel our spring ball practices. We did get a couple in, and man, I really started to see us unite together as a team in just a very short amount of time, and we were having so much fun. Again, we kept it simple in the beginning: work hard, show up, work hard, have fun, right? That's our only goal. And we were evaluating talent, and guys were a little nervous in the beginning. New coaches, what do they think of me? Where am I going to fit in relative to a year ago? But after a couple of practices, you could already see the camaraderie and the brotherhood, and that was so exciting. It was very emotional for me because I was getting all excited. And then we got sent home. So we, like all the other coaches, we've navigated, the virtual world. And I think we've used it as an opportunity to educate our players and communicate, maybe even more so one-on-one throughout this entire process. But I miss being on the field, and I know our players miss being on the field. And I just can't wait till we can finally walk out there together and have a practice and hopefully play a game, right? I mean, that's what we love to do. That's where we live, is in that moment of practice and playing games and preparing and celebrating. that's missing right now. So I can't wait till that time happens. And it's tough not knowing, what exactly is going to happen. We know, right? We're wondering right now, are we going to have our non-conference games canceled? Are we going to push it to the spring? Nobody knows, right? And so I think you really just have a lot of patience and look at the glass half full. I've gotten to get to know some of my coaches even better. We probably had a lot of discussions that we wouldn't have had if we were concentrating on football. Got to know them better as people, which is pretty cool. Same with a couple of our players that I got to know a little bit better, I think, throughout this process. I hear all these stories about coaches that spend hours and hours and hours in their office at work. I haven't done that at all. I've been home with my wife, Lisa. Our kids have visited. We've had all kinds of fun. So, in terms of that, got to spend a lot more time with my family. And I think all of us feel that's like, maybe we can do things virtually. Maybe we can do things and not have to be at the office as long and spend more time with our family. I know during the NFL draft, a lot of the coaches gave that feedback. Hey, you know what? We did it and we still got to spend time with our family, and maybe this is possible. So I'm hoping, again, as a glass half full guy, that we can come out of this better and smarter and more efficient, and with this new normal, move forward and be productive, but actually at some point get back on the field and coach, which is what we were born to do.
Absolutely. Now, Coach Hill, that same question for you. How did COVID affect your program in the spring, and how have you been navigating the past few months?
Well, we got 2 practices and then everything got shut down. About a week after we got shut down, pretty much the players went home because we canceled classes. It was hard to keep them around with all the unknown. I didn't see them for the next couple months. We got them back on campus basically the second week of June. And as I keep glancing to my left, I've actually got 15 players out on the field right now working out in small groups. And I think that that's an awesome step forward right now. One thing about football coaches is if we don't get to coach, I don't care who you are, you're not yourself. And there becomes a psychological toll that takes place. There were times where I would come into my office and I'd be the only guy on campus and I would just watch film to feel normal again. And I think that that's the case right now with our players. If they're not out on the field, psychologically, that's hard on them. And Ed made a comment about that earlier, that these players, to be themselves, need to be playing. And we got to find a way to protect them. We got to do everything that Dan was talking about with the testing and all that stuff. But these guys need to be playing somehow, some way. And I hope and pray that we can do it this year because, like I say, you're taking a big chunk of who these kids are if they don't get to do that. And we got to find a way, somehow, some way to keep them safe doing it.
Absolutely. Now it's time to answer some questions from Big Sky football fans on Twitter. Up first, Coach Hawkins, a question for you. Who on your team would win an arm wrestling?
Who would win an arm wrestling?
Yes, who on your team?
Oh, we're not much arm wrestlers. How about molecular biology? Arm wrestling. Wow. Our center, Connor Pettick, would probably be in that category. We got a nose guard, Josiah Sawani, who would probably be in that category. Yeah, I'd say those two probably are 2 guys inside.
Okay. Now, Coach Hill, how do you plan to keep your players hungry and avoid complacency after 3 straight Big Sky titles?
Because you get your butt kicked if you're not. There's too many good teams. You can go from the top to the bottom in a year. And if you get complacent or you start thinking you've arrived, you will get killed in this league. And that's just how it is. You want to get embarrassed, act like you've arrived.
Coach McCaffrey, what is the best thing you have done this summer?
First of all, I hope I'm asked that question in 3 years. That's a great question to be asked, that previous question. Best thing I've done? Well, this summer, so I got kicked out in the spring. So the best thing I did was, coach our team for the short amount of time we were allowed to coach. I really enjoyed that. But over the summer, I pretty much was quarantined for most of it. I really enjoyed time with my family and their friends. So we had a little bit of a quarantine group. There's about 10 of us who spent about 100 days, I think it was 93 to be exact, days together. And it was all 4 of my boys at one point got home. And my 4 boys never get home all at the same time. They all play football. All the holidays are taken up with football. You're not allowed to come home. And they all came home. So to have my 4 boys with my wife and I, Lisa, here together with their friends. You know, they brought girlfriends and friends that also stayed with us, and getting to know them. Were beautiful people and wonderful people. I gotta say, it was kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity to really spend time with my sons as young men, as adults, and have them interact together. We had 7 birthdays. We had our anniversary. You know, Christian signed a new contract. We celebrated the holidays. And despite all the adversity and horrific things going on in the world, that time together was really important. So I think, you know, being able to be a dad and having my whole family together was pretty special.
That is very special. I'm glad to hear that. Now, Coach Taylor, do you have any superstitions or pregame rituals?
And how do we throw these superstitions off, Coach Taylor?
You know, I like to kind of just lay down like before a game if I get an opportunity, and kind of not sleeping, more like kind of meditating, although sometimes I doze off. So to be honest with you, just kind of taking a nap before we go out is probably my biggest superstition.
There we go. One last Twitter question for all of you. This one comes from the Big Sky Commissioner. In one word, describe how being a football coach makes you feel. Coach Hawkins, you can go first. One word.
I guess I would say humble.
Coach Hill, what about you?
Alive.
Coach Taylor?
Happy.
And Coach McCaffrey?
I'm going with Coach Hill. That's what I was going to say. Alive. I don't know if there's a better word to describe it. You just feel a sense of purpose. But if it's one word, I'm sorry, plagiarizing. I'm going with alive.
I love it. Thank you, coaches Hawkins, Hill, McCaffrey, and Taylor for joining us on the Big Sky Football Virtual Kickoff. It is always a pleasure. We're ready for our next set of head coach interviews for the 2020 Big Sky Football Virtual Kickoff. I'm joined by Montana head coach Bobby Houck, Northern Arizona head coach Chris Ball, and Southern Utah head coach Demario Warren. Welcome and thanks for joining me today to talk Big Sky Football. We're going to jump right into our first set of questions. This question is for all of you, but Coach Houck, we'll start with you. What is the most challenging element of playing in the Big Sky Conference?
I think there's a lot of things that are unique. I think the vast area that the conference covers lends itself to tough travel for people. I also think there's a lot of good players and coaches at the other schools in the league. So to me, those are the two biggest challenges.
Coach Warren, what about you?
Yeah, I would agree with Coach Houck. I think the players on the West Coast, only having the Pac-12, the Mountain West, and the Big Sky, we're getting a very high caliber of FCS level talent at our level. And then, I mean, you look at the coaches in this conference. I mean, you look at Coach Houck, that's been an FBS head coach. Coach Ball was just recently in a group of 5 as a coordinator. You got Coach Hawkins. You got Jay Hill, which is one of the top coaches in the country right now. It is scheme-wise and is all over the place, and just the knowledge and talent pool of the players is really difficult to week in and week out to be able to compete with these guys.
Coach Ball.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. You know, we get to our head coaches meeting, and you start looking around the table, and the coaches in our league are unbelievable. And you know, I've known a lot, half of them for a long time. I've spent time out here on the West Coast, but from top to bottom. Now you just throw Bo Baldwin in there. You know, you start looking at the table with some really, first of all, great men. And are doing it for the right reasons. And great. And I'd have to agree with everybody else. The travel in this league is brutal. You know, to go up and have to play at Montana and Montana State, and even, you know, for us to get to Southern Utah is tough. You know, so it's a grind road schedule. It's tough. And, you know, we got a heck of a home field advantage. We were playing at 7,000 feet in a dome. You know, it's tough to come here and play. So those two factors, I agree with both those guys. It's a tough place. The road games are tough. The coaching's great. And then, you know, DeMar said it is the recruiting. You know, we're the only scholarship FCS program west of the mountain, west of the Rockies. So, I mean, we got a great group. We got a great recruiting base to choose from. So I think that helps put our league at the top.
Absolutely. Now, Coach Houck, although the narrative around the league will be how does Montana replace Dalton Sneed and Dante Olson, internally it seems you have a lot of confidence in guys like quarterback Cam Humphrey and the linebacker Jace Lewis. Where does that confidence come from?
How do you know what's going on internally?
This is a media question, so that's their question. But they seem
we're real. I'm kidding, of course. You can come to any meeting you want, anytime. But we feel good about our team. We feel that we've really established a good depth at every position. We feel like we've made improvements at all the positions where we needed to. Certainly when you have great players, I mean, the Buchanan Award winner going out and Dante Olson, and then you're starting quarterback who was a great player before he got injured last year. When you have those guys going out the door, those are big holes to fill, but that's college football. That's what DeMario has to do it, and Chris has to do it, and every other coach in our league has to do it every year. And I think that that's the nature of a good program, is you're able to retool every offseason and go out and compete and win.
Coach Warren, what does Landon Misa mean to your offense?
He's invaluable. He missed the beginning of last season, and our offense struggled because of it. And when he came back, our production went way up. But just his intelligence to be able to play different positions, a slot and outside, being able to set the tone for our block, for our receivers to block, and just he's reliable. He's a guy that's sure-handed. He's always going to do the job, and he's going to get under the skin of the opponent's defender. So he sets the standard for our offense, and I think as he goes, our offense will grow.
Now, Coach Ball, how has the quarterback room shaped up as you look to name a starter and replace Case Cookus?
Well, you know, obviously losing Case, you know, he's a great player here. You know, sort of embarrassing to have such a great quarterback and end up being 4-8, but he was a great player, great person. You know, he's going to have an opportunity to make it at the next level. You know, those guys are hard to replace. You know, those guys just don't come around all the time. But we've got one thing I've learned over the years is that we're going to be good at quarterback. Anytime you've got a quarterback, you got a chance to win, and that's one position that we're going to oversign at. We've got two really good candidates for that position, really three. Jeff Widener, kid from Apple Valley, who is very talented, and we got a transfer from Oklahoma State, Keontae Woodtee, that we redshirting last year, 6'5", 220-pound kid that can throw, and probably one of the smartest football players I've ever been around. So we're excited about those two. And then you got Heath B. Miller, who's
for a few years, very athletic, can run the football. So, and he actually, towards the end of the season, was playing really, really good at really playing at a high level. And so we've got 3 to pick from. It's going to be a heck of a battle. It's going to be fun to watch. All 3 of them are very talented. And we got a freshman coming in, Nico Hain from Phoenix, Sunny Slope High School. It's very talented also. So we've got some guys to pick from. Hopefully we can run the ball better than we did last year. That's sort of the plan, to take the pressure off of them a little bit. But we feel good about our quarterback situation.
Now, Coach Hauk, another question for you. You've talked about the importance of depth over the years. Now that you are in year 3 coming back, do you feel this team is getting to where you want it depth-wise?
Well, first, I want to tell you, I was taking notes that Chris gave us some coaching 101 there. I was taking notes on having a good quarterback and running the ball. That's great stuff. Philosophically, we're aligned. I need to go work for him. But, you know,
just trying to do it like you guys do it up there.
You know, I thought that when we first got here, we were scrambling to try to get a competitive starting lineup on the field, which is certainly first and foremost. But when we've been good around here, we've had good depth. When we've had attrition and guys have gone down, the man coming in and picking up the flag has been capable and in some cases exceeded as he developed the guy who was in front of him. So it's really important, in my opinion, especially at this level, that we could potentially all play a lot of games. If you're playing in the national championship game, you're going to play 15 or 16 games depending on the year, and that really takes a tremendous physical toll on your team. So you have to have depth, and you have to be able to overcome setbacks in the injury area.
Absolutely. Coach Warren, why are road games so hard to win in the Big Sky Conference?
I think Coach Hauk mentioned one of the reasons, just the travel, being able to be able to travel to some of these places is a little bit more difficult than other conferences. But at the same time, I think it's more of just how competitive these teams are. I mean, you look at NAU last year, we played at home and was able to squeak by. The week before, they should have beat the champs on the road. They kind of collapsed with like a minute left, but they should have beat Sac State. So the level of the team is so close that just getting out of your rhythm of being at home and having to travel on the road, I think is just enough to give that home team an advantage in our conference. And so when you got 1 through 13, that's a really tough competition each week. I think being at home just gives you that little.
Now, Coach Ball, fans love a good rivalry game, and Coach Warren and the Thunderbirds are yours. Talk about the extra hype that game brings, especially towards the end of the season.
It's a big deal because they're right up the road. You know, they recruit Arizona, we recruit. You know, recruit a lot of the same guys, and it's the closest team, obviously. I know it hasn't been going on for as long as some of the rivalries have in our conference, but it's a big deal to us, you know, a really big deal. So when I came in here, you know, when we were changing our culture and installing our culture, I talked about the importance of that game. You know, and the fun game tomorrow does a great job up there. He's a great football coach and does a great job with his kids and his program. And but it's a big deal to us, our staff and our players, and that's something we emphasize all the time.
All right, now a COVID-related question for all of you. Are there any strategies or tactics you had to use for the atypical COVID off season that will become permanent fixtures of your program? Coach Warren, we can start with you on that one.
Yeah, there are some things that I've learned over the last couple months that really changed my perspective on how we're going to do things. I think filming installs were huge. Having the coaches be able to have that feedback for themselves, to go back and watch themselves, and then have the players be able to watch it even after the meetings go. So I love filming the installs. I thought that was something that we can do moving forward and could cut out some time that we can use during the week. So I thought that was great, and we're going to probably use that moving forward.
Coach Hauk, what about for your program?
Well, I would piggyback on what DeMario said there a little bit. I'll be real intrigued to see how much of it they retain. You know, I I don't think our players do very well in online education. You know, the online classes generally, I don't think they learn much. So it'll be interesting to see what they retain. Maybe I'll change my opinion on that, but I don't think so. And then, you know, the idea that the coronavirus is going away is erroneous. It's with us. So there's certain things we're going to have to continue to do and probably be more aware when guys aren't feeling well and trying to extract them from the mix until we know what's wrong with them.
Absolutely. Coach Ball?
Yeah, it's been, you know, it was interesting. The minute we shut things down, I put together a schedule, and staff-wise, we got a lot done as far as X and O stuff and recruiting. You know, we spend about 4 hours a day on recruiting. Spend a lot of time on the phone, texting, evaluating tape. One thing you don't get, you don't get to see the kids, obviously, but it's we've spent a lot of time on that. We're way ahead recruiting-wise, which is going to help us when it's time to go out and know exactly where to go. Part of it, I'm a little bit like Bobby. I'm curious to see how they retain. I don't know if usually you put something in, you go out and you practice. We all three of us, I guarantee, we've been through install 1, install 2, install 3, install 4, install 5, install 6, all on Zoom. And we haven't been able to go out and walk through it. And you get on Zoom, the first thing in Zoom, people are moving around, you're trying to get them, see if they're sitting up, seeing if they're taking notes. It'll be interesting. We've talked a lot of football with them. And I'm curious to see how much they retain. But, some things Zoom too is that, you can have Zoom. I'm comfortable having Zoom staff meetings now, if people are out on the road, you have a staff meeting, let's do it on Zoom. If you get in the off season and you don't want everybody to come in the office, let's have a Zoom meeting in the morning. You got Friday off. Things are things that I'm comfortable with now, we'll see moving forward what happens. Really, really anxious to get out there and see.
Absolutely. Definitely some pros and cons there. Now, Coach Warren, what has been the biggest difference the last 2 seasons at Southern Utah after winning the 2017 Big Sky title, and what do you need to do to get back to that level?
Yeah, it all falls on the coach's shoulders, the head coach's shoulders, and building a great roster with depth, kind of what Coach Hawk talked about earlier, having a great culture. That's all conducive to winning. I think that's something that we have to get back to and build it the right way. I think youth was another big issue. When we were in 2017, we had 35 seniors. We haven't had more than 16 seniors since then. And so our junior class is finally up to the numbers that we like, and the guys that are actually playing on the field. They had a tough freshman year and had a tough sophomore year, but now those guys are juniors. And so I think we're back on the brink of having a strong roster with a great culture that's conducive to winning. And so I'm excited to get back to that point where we have a senior and junior rated roster that can be competitive versus these great teams.
Coach Hawk, what in your mind is the step your team needs to make to not only repeat last year's success, but improve upon that?
Well, that's the word. We just need to continue to improve. We had a couple games where we didn't perform very well. Otherwise, we were pretty good. And we won 10 games for the first time in a long time around here. I don't know if it was 8 or 9 years or something like that. So I think we're on track. It's about working hard, being diligent with your preparation, both in season and out of season, and getting better. And we want to play our best football when we get to the month of November, and we did that a couple of times, and then we didn't do it a couple of times. So play good in all 3 phases and get her going.
There you go. Coach Ball, with year 1 under your belt, what are your expectations for year 2?
Well, to get better. We feel good. We got a lot of kids coming back on both sides of the ball. We've improved our positions, the positions that needed to be improved through recruiting, a few transfers. But, you got to show up every day and make yourself better. And at the end of the day, we talk to our kids about it. When your feet hit that floor in the morning, you decide who you're going to be. And it's just a choice. And if you can just make yourself a little bit better each day, then we're going to be just fine. And, it's a grind. A season's a grind. And the coach said, you want to be, and something I've learned is, you only got 63 scholarships. It's not like you got 85. And it's something you get a couple guys hurt, like we did towards the end of the season, and it happened really in the middle of the season. It killed. I feel good about our day. We got to continue to work. We got to get better job in the weight. We got to continue to get stronger. And I like where we're at. I love this team. I like what we're doing. I like their attitude through this whole virus thing. But at the end of the day, it's about work. Work ethic. And there's only one way to be great at anything. That's hard work.
Absolutely. Now, another question for all of you, being defensive guys, can you explain the challenge the league is facing defensively with such an influx of projected new starters at QB1 within the Big Sky? Coach Warren, we'll start with you.
To be honest, you got Cookus out, Mayer out, Kevin Thompson, Snead. There's going to be a lot of new quarterbacks, but to prepare for those four, we're pretty hard. And so I know there's going to be great quarterbacks. We're in the Big Sky. That's what we do. But I don't think it's going to be more challenging than it has been in the last 13 years I've been in the Big Sky. Every season's new. And like I said, we had some great quarterbacks just leave the conference. So we'll see how these young guys come in and how well they perform.
Coach Houck, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, being a defensive player or coach is tough. Chris is most recently a defensive coordinator. You're an endangered species, man. You don't unpack your bags generally because the rules are slanted towards the offense and the way things are done. Everything's in the offense's favor. So you have to be tough-minded to coach and play defense, and you have to be able to overcome adversity. And to me, that's the critical element. When you give up a play, then you need to go back and make the next one. And, the way college football is set up rule-wise now, yards don't matter. It's about getting one more point than the other team. And so keep them out of the end zone and try to give your offense a chance to score.
Coach Ball.
Yeah, we've the same philosophy at Memphis and Arizona State is, as a defensive guy and looking at your defense, you get caught up in the yardage. Like Bobby said, the rules are so slanted anymore towards the offense. You're going to drive yourself crazy. You're going to worry about yards. So you've got to be great in the red zone defensively. You've got to be great on third down, and then you've got to create a lot of takeaways. And if you can do that, you're getting the ball back for your offense, eliminating scores in the red zone, you'll be fine. But if you sit around and like we used to, we had yardage goals and those now I just laugh because that's a joke. We want to do 150 yards, 100 yards rushing, 150 yards passing. No way, that's not happening anymore. Just because where the game is at. Those are things that we stress defensively. And this conference isn't like it used to be either. A lot of more people in this league are running the football, and it's becoming a very physical conference. And you have to run the football to be able to help your defense also. So I think people are seeing that. And you see a lot of defensive guys that are head coaches in our league, are seeing that, hey, you want to help your defense, run the football. And this conference is quickly becoming a very, very physical conference.
Now, Coach Warren, the Big Sky continues to produce top talent in the FCS. What makes Big Sky schools so attractive?
Again, I think being on the West Coast helps, but just there's excellent universities within our conference. There's some great universities, great locations, and so it's great to play football at our universities. And then there's just great football players. Again, if you want to go to the next level, I think the Big Sky has consistently put out guys in different programs because there's so many guys that you compete against. And so we have the respect of the NFL as a conference from team to team. And then one thing I love to do in the off season is just study these guys. And we have some great football minds. And so being able to pull up Montana's film or pull up NAU's film and see what they're doing and why they're successful and what kind of schemes they're doing. It's fun. I mean, there's great coaches around the country, but I feel like we have some of the best here in the Big Sky, and it's fun to be able to watch those guys year in and year out and see what they come up with next.
Coach Hauk, another question for you. What will it take for a Big Sky team to overtake North Dakota State?
Well, that's certainly multifaceted. They have a lot of good, I've known the last 3 head coaches at North Dakota State really well, and we've actually shared some things over the years. So I have a good insight into how they're doing things. And I mean, if you would start, we need to fund our programs like they're funding theirs. I mean, they're building facilities. They're paying full cost of attendance. They've got their guys there. They've got staffing. They've got nutrition. They've got all the things that all the big-time football programs have. So it starts with that, and then you've got to keep recruiting and developing your players. And you don't overcome something like that overnight. But my brother coaches at Philadelphia, and I had a chance to visit with Carson Wentz a couple of years ago just for a few minutes, and I said, we're coming after your guys. And he said, good luck with that. And he was right. But I had to remind him that there wasn't too many years ago we were ahead of them.
There you go. Now, our next set of questions will be related to COVID-19. We did touch on that a little bit more, or a little bit previously, but we'll head into that a little bit more. And we'll be getting into some social injustice questions as well. So with respect to COVID-19, how has it impacted your programs, and what specifically are the biggest challenges towards keeping your players and coaches safe and healthy throughout the season? Coach Warren, we'll start with you.
I think just as a coach in general, one of your biggest goals is to try to bring everybody together. You got 100+ players. You have a staff of 10 to 20, depending on where you're at. And so you're always thinking of, how do we bring everybody together? How do we get everybody in the same room? How do we build this camaraderie that's so important to win football games? And with COVID going on, it changes everything. I mean, you're trying to figure out, how can you get everything that you need to get done to be able to be successful in football, but keep everybody separated. And so I think that's a huge impact that we've had, just trying to figure out ways that we can get all the work we need to get done, but also keep as many guys separated as possible and limit the exposure of spreading the disease more than as much as we can.
Coach Ball, what about your program?
First and foremost, obviously, and all of us agree on this, is our health and safety of our players. I think the hardest part of this whole thing is not being together, obviously, but is getting straight answers. What's real, what isn't real. Everybody's an expert now. It's tough to plan when you don't really know. So the perfect scenario as football coaches, we're always talking about, worry about the stuff that you can control. We talk about red light, green light, and the green light stuff. We can control our attitude, our effort, our energy, our confidence. We can't control the red light stuff. We can't control this virus stuff. We can't control the media. We can't control the fans. We can't control the officials. We can't control the weather. So why worry about it? So we've moved forward. I feel like we're accomplishing some things. We're not doing it together. It made it tough, made it really tough. So, as a coach, one of the best things about our profession is our players, getting to deal with our players and be around them and help them accomplish the goals that they have, and haven't been able to do that. So that's been really tough. I think we've gotten as much out of this as you can. We're working in groups of 10 right now. Hopefully we can increase that here in a week or so. But our kids are working. I've done a lot of meetings with our leadership council on Zoom. Our coaches have done a great job of communicating. I think that's probably the biggest thing that we've done. One of the best things that we've done is communicated with our guys daily. So I think we're all on the same page. It's just there's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of unknown, and that's probably what makes it harder than anything, is just not knowing what's going to happen and trying to plan for it.
Right. Now, Coach, how the biggest challenges towards keeping your players and coaches safe, and how COVID-19 has affected your program?
Well, the good news is we're finding out is the coronavirus isn't lethal for people our players' age, so they don't worry about it too much, and you know, getting back together and playing football certainly is probably not going to put them at great risk. What I have seen is the separation they've experienced over the last few months, particularly this spring, has been disastrous for their mental health. It's just been awful for them. They're suffering mentally from it, and we need to get them back together. And, you know, like I said earlier, the coronavirus isn't going anyplace, and half measures don't work. So my opinion is we either go or we don't go. We shut the country down, and which I don't think is feasible financially, personally. And then the other side of it is we go or we don't go. If you're uncomfortable, don't play, don't coach, don't go to the games. If you're comfortable, go. Let's roll.
All right, now another question for all of you. Between the pandemic and the fight for racial equality, what kind of conversations have you had with your team and everything that's happened in 2020 so far? Coach Warren, we'll start with you.
The biggest thing for me is just understanding the pandemic. This has never happened before, and so people are going to react in different ways. And so you have to be sympathetic to how people are reacting to it, understand where they're coming from, and be able to support them. And then as far as the racial justice thing, I think it goes along the same lines of understanding and educating people on there's not just one reason why people are fighting. There's not one topic that you can put your finger on that this is why this is going on. And so educating them about all the different things that are going around the country and all the injustices that people are fighting for, and to understand that just because you are a part of a group or you support something, there's a bunch of individuals within that support group, and actually taking the time to break those groups apart and understand what those people are all about. And so being in Southern Utah, having Black players, having white players with Democrat and Republican backgrounds, it's important to understand just because you're a Democrat or Republican, there's a lot of common ground that you can stand on. And we're going to start actually a unity group just to try to figure out what are some of these big issues that create so much anger for certain people, and then finding out and educating them, say, look, there's a lot more common ground than you guys would think. And so we're all humans, we're all Americans. And so being able to understand them, where they're coming from, being able to tell them that we support them and that we're there if they need to vent or they need to talk to somebody, and then just educating them on how they can make a difference, like voting and different topics like that. So it's been interesting for sure. But I think supporting and understanding our players is the biggest thing that we can do.
Absolutely. Coach Ball?
You know, we've had some, as a staff and as on Zoom meetings, we've had some great conversations. You know, I think, you know, and I tell a story, I tell the players, I said, I've been coaching for 37 years, and every 3 or 4 years that sort of goes away. Okay. And I think we have made a commitment to continue the discussions and educate them on the true leaders, Martin Luther King, the Rosa Parks, people that the leaders talk about. Let's get uncomfortable and talk about. Let's have the kid from Stacy Chuck talk about what it's like in South LA, South Central LA, and then have the kid from Boulder Creek talk about what his life's like, so we all understand it. But you know, this has been said numerous of times. If society was like a football locker room, we wouldn't have these problems. We would not have these problems. But we as coaches deal with it. We're around it every day. We're around Black kids. We're around white kids. We're from different socioeconomic backgrounds, different parts of the country, and it works. It works. You get outside of our world, and there are some issues. And I think we're not going to solve those issues, but we can at least educate our players for when they go out in the world that they can deal with these things the right way. And but we're going to keep it alive. We're going to keep it alive, and we're going to have some uncomfortable conversations in camp. But that's how you learn. And so we're committed to this. I've talked to the players. We got an itinerary for it. We got an outline for it. We're going to break up in groups. We have different groups. We're going to do a lot of things. We're going to keep it alive and hopefully educate our players, and that can go out in the community and make a difference, the right way.
That's great. Now, Coach Houck, what kind of conversations have you had with your team?
Well, we talked to our team and within our staff extensively, both in larger and smaller groups. And, what a couple of things, and I'm going to second mostly what Chris and Demario said, but we're trying to educate our players on how to be strong, positive leaders for their generation. And strong and positive are two key words in that. We also want to educate them on where they're getting their information, whether it's accurate. And then we also want them to be stand-up people when they see some other person in their sphere of influence doing something wrong, is to call them on it. And really, if they're doing something right, call them on that too and let them know. But I'm a real firm believer that, well, first of all, everybody in this day and age seems to have an opinion, and they also seem to think we want to hear it. And I think opinions are not worth a whole bunch. Actions speak. And so, as Chris said, we're going to follow people's actions and try to lead through example in our program.
Now, one last question in relation to this before we move on to our Twitter questions. How have you supported your African-American athletes and let them have a voice in this important time? Coach Warren, we can start with you on that one.
Yeah, I've had individual conversations with guys that are protesting. I protested myself here in Cedar City and had a really good experience. But just reaching out to guys that I see that are protesting and make sure that they know that they have my support and they're not worried about being on our team, and then trying to educate them to make sure that they're making correct decisions when they're out there, and to make sure they're not doing anything that would put themselves at jeopardy. And then talking with guys on the phone, guys have called me and just talked to me about just my perspective. And so I've had our conversations with a couple guys of everything about defunding the police, and having a conversation around that, and talking about like what some of these terms mean, and again, trying to educate them. And so I think the biggest thing that I do is make sure that the players know I support them and that I'm there for them if they need to talk. And I'm here, and I try to educate myself as much as I can on some of these terms and some of these topics that are going on, so I can just give them what I know, and then they can make their own decision about how they believe, which side of the fence they want to support. And so I think it's just being there for them and really, again, educating them how they can make a difference is what we've done. And again, reaching out to every single one of them to make sure that they know that I'm here if they need to talk.
Coach Houck, what about you? How have you supported your African-American athletes and let them have a voice in this important time?
Well, we support all our athletes, not just our Black kids. We love them all equally, and we've just tried to educate them on the right way to do things.
Coach Ball?
A lot of conversations, a lot of listening, and then backing and supporting them. And supporting them, and when I talk about supporting them, educating them on the right way to do things. And but a lot of listening, and just say, hey, I'm here for you. We love our players, black, white, green, yellow, whatever. We love our players, and we're here to make a difference in their lives. And this is a great learning opportunity for us as coaches. Great opportunity to educate them. And they know we're here for them. We know we care about them. And but we've got to listen. A lot of people shouting right now. Nobody's listening. So listen and communicate and build that continue to build that relationship, and let them know that we do support them when we get back.
definitely important. So now it is time to answer some questions from Big Sky football fans on Twitter. Up first, Coach Hauk, this question came from ZG for Real. He said, I know Coach Hauk.
That's an odd name.
Well,
whose parents named their kids ZG for Real?
I think that's the Twitter name.
Oh, I got you.
Yes. He said, I know Coach Hauk only looks forward, so I won't ask about last year, but how do you shift the balance of power back to Missoula from Bozeman?
Done. It's already done.
All right, mic drop. Anything else you want to add to that, or that's it?
No, we need to win that game. They kicked our ass last year, and we're not pleased about it.
All right, Coach Ball, your question comes from Dawson McPeak. Who on the team do you think looks the most like an actual lumberjack?
Dawson. Dawson looks more like, he looks like a lumberjack more than anybody, yes. He's got a great beard.
Okay, there we go.
It's all about the beard.
Coach Warren, your question comes from Bryson Verne. What do you listen to on bus rides to games?
Usually audiobooks, to be honest. Those are some long trips, so I try to listen to whatever audiobook I'm on. So audiobook, if I'm listening to music, Big Sean or some R&B to kind of be relaxing. So.
And then one last question for all of you from Big Sky Commish. What's the best coaching advice you've ever received? Coach Hauk, we'll start with you.
When my mother told me I should be going to law school rather than get into coaching.
Okay, well, look at you now. So
look at me now. Yeah, I'm looking at a phone talking to people instead of in person. I don't know. The best advice would probably be, as a young coach, work, and shut up.
There we go. Coach Ball.
Oh, man. I grew up in a coach's family. When I decided to be a coach, I was like Bobby, and my mom said, are you kidding me? Are you absolutely kidding me? But, probably, be yourself. Be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. Be yourself.
Coach Warren, what about you? Best coaching advice you've ever received?
I think Coach Ball actually said it, and just control the things you can control and do the best job that you can. I think if you focus on your current job, where you're at, I think you got the best opportunity to be successful. If you're worried about other things, then you're going to stress yourself out for no reason.
There you have it. Thank you, coaches Ball, Hauk, and Warren, for joining us on the Big Sky Football Virtual Kickoff. It's always a pleasure. We're ready for our next set of head coach interviews for the 2020 Big Sky Football Virtual Kickoff. I'm joined by Cal Poly head coach Bo Baldwin, Eastern Washington head coach Aaron Best, and Idaho head coach Paul Petrino. Welcome and thanks for joining me today to talk Big Sky football. We're going to jump right into our first set of questions. So this is a question for all of you. What is the most challenging element of playing in the Big Sky Conference? And Coach Best, we'll start with you on that one.
Well, I think the most challenging over the years is the league's gotten a lot better from top to bottom. Having been part of this league for a better part of 2.5 decades, the offenses in this league are our defensive coordinators and head coaches' worst nightmare sometimes as far as what the offenses have been able to do, not only schematically but individually. And so I think that keeps people up at night, but also makes it entertaining and fun when, there's some of the top offenses in the country hail from this conference. And so the largeness of the conference also plays. The difficulty not playing everybody every year in a round robin format is a little bit tough and can be unequal sometimes. But overall, I would say from top to bottom over the past probably 4 to 5 years, the conference has vastly improved in a lot of different ways.
Coach Petrino, I'm going to shoot that same question over to you.
Yeah, I'd say, a lot of what Coach just got done saying would probably start with the quarterbacks. You have such good quarterback play week in and week out. That's usually the team with the best quarterback usually wins. And there's just so many really highly talented quarterbacks, and then the offensive coordinators and head coaches do such a good job with them. And anytime you have a good quarterback, then you can recruit good receivers. So, probably what it comes down to each week is a lot of teams have really good quarterbacks, and it's the team that can protect him the best. So the team that can run the ball enough and have an offensive line that can protect him and keep him from getting hit too many times, that's usually the team that wins. But just week in and week out, how just the level of play of the quarterbacks, it makes it a tough league, and you got to be ready to go every week. And every team you play, it seems like there's just another good quarterback that you're playing against.
Absolutely. Coach Baldwin.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can echo a lot of things that Coach Best and Coach Petrino just mentioned, and seeing, everything from the quarterback play to how the league's evolved, like Coach Best said, with going from 8 or 9 teams to 13 teams. I think there's such a great variety too. You see different things like, what Weber State maybe does on offense compared to what, Sac State, Eastern, and that makes it tough too, just with the variety and the different things you have to face each week. And I think, also the level of both the coaches that are in these programs and their ability to recruit. So both the coaching that they're doing at their program and their ability to recruit is, and coaches can speak on this, I'm sure, 15, 20 years ago, it's increased in an incredible way, to where it is a challenge. I think a lot of our rosters in this conference over the years would have no problem going into certain FBS conferences and competing pretty well. And I just think a lot of that has to do too with the recruiting out west. And there's only so many, universities to choose from, and there's still a lot of student athletes, out this way. So yeah, I think it's just made things tougher and tougher every year, having been a part of it for so long.
Now, Coach Best, a question for you. What would you like to see from Eric Berrier this season that you may not have seen last year, and what sort of security does he bring to your offense?
Well, Coach Petrino talked about it. We're highly blessed. Obviously, Eric came in 2016 as a redshirt when Coach Baldwin was the head coach, so we're afforded the opportunity to see his growth both on and off the field over the last 4 to 5 years. I'd like to see him continue to progress what he did last year, and that's maintaining the football and not turning the ball over, which he had a propensity to do a little bit in 2018 at times. Good defense can overcome some of those turnovers on offense, which we had a pretty solid defense in 18. But just continue to challenge his players, not just offensively but defensively. Stay engaged in the game as long as he can. And continue to direct traffic on offense and continue to build on the leadership qualities that he's presented. He's not loud by any stretch of the imagination, but when he speaks, people listen. So he's a talented person, not just physically, but also emotionally and mentally. It's just a matter of him doing those things a little bit more often throughout the course of the game and the entirety of the season.
Now, Coach Petrino, the league is sure to be filled with new quarterback faces, including a new starter for your team. What are your thoughts on the quarterback position at Idaho?
Yeah, I think it'll be a really good challenge. We have one young man back, Nikhil. We have a transfer from UConn, Mike Beaudre. He's big. He's got a strong arm. Played a lot of football. Actually led Western Florida Division II team to the national championship. Then went to UConn, and now is coming here. So he's a big, strong-armed quarterback. And then we have a freshman coming in that I hope a couple years down the road looks just like Eastern's quarterback, in CJ. He's very athletic, very talented, can do a lot of different things. So it'll be a really good competition between the three. and we'll just have to find out who's going to help us win the best. But I'm looking forward to it. It'll be very exciting.
Absolutely. Now, Coach Baldwin, how difficult is it for you going into a season sure to be highlighted by a preseason quarterback battle, but with limited preseason to evaluate the position?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, we know that, but I think, there are a lot of things difficult for everybody, and where, and just wherever they are in their area and the challenges that come with it. So, no, it's not ideal. We know that, but at the same time, I think we're not going to, focus on what's difficult. We're going to focus on, just what we can do once we are able to get back to create that great, healthy competition, which there'll definitely be that healthy competition at that position. There's no doubt about it. And, and we were able to bring in a couple guys that I think will add to a mix, and obviously a returning starter in Jalen. But, it's still not a returning starter for us. And that's not just him. He's done a great job, with what he's done in this off season for the little we've been able to see before it all hit. But everyone's going to, get that fair shot because we haven't seen him. And really that's the case. I don't care. And these coaches will tell you, even if you've been there 5 years, that doesn't mean in year 6, and I've been around this guy, it's still, it starts over again. And if you haven't done the right things in the off season. So difficult, yes, but things are difficult for everybody. So we're not going to, focus on that. We're just going to focus on, knock on wood, getting back as soon as we can and seeing that competition.
There we go. Now, Coach Best, what are the 2 to 3 biggest improvements Eastern Washington needs to make to still be competing for a Big Sky title heading into this season's last couple weeks and position yourself for a playoff bid?
Well, just based on sheer numbers, and numbers don't lie, but they certainly don't tell the whole story in any circumstance. But red zone efficiency offensively, red zone efficiency defensively, and being able to create more turnovers on defense. So we've got to give the offense more opportunities to have the ball, maintain some of the things that we've done for a long time here. That's score a lot of points and grind out a lot of yards, both in the air and on the ground. And so if we can continue to push forward in the things that we've been above average at and pick up some of the slack that we've been below average at, I think we've got a good shot along with a lot of other teams in this league.
Coach Baldwin, why did you pick returning to the Big Sky versus another FCS conference?
Well, I mean, it's the way, when it all happened, it was just an opportunity that I definitely thought had so many positives to it. So it wasn't so much returning to the Big Sky over anything else. It was just an opportunity with Cal Poly and the leadership between, President Armstrong, Athletic Director Don Oberhelman, and just, different things that I thought were in place that I thought, made Cal Poly a very special place, and now I've seen it now firsthand, even though, yeah, we've been hit and we haven't been able to do some of the things we would have liked to. I still got a good picture of that and have still gotten a good picture of that in the last 6 to 8 months that have, reaffirmed what I believed, when that first opportunity came about. So I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to interview for the job. And, and once I did, there was something very authentic and very real about the, Cal Poly and just the program, and really, just authentic about its vision. And that's what I loved about it. There was a vision from the top, and that was big, so, and they've done nothing to, everything that I've been, experienced down there in this time since then has just reaffirmed that, it's an exciting place.
Great. Now, Coach Petrino, you always talk about your program as family, and that's obvious in how you recruit brothers and sons. Can you share with the rest of the Big Sky watching about this unique style of yours and some of the true family pairing you have on the team?
Yeah, I think it's always anytime you can get an older brother, then if the little brother's good enough, first of all, you got to make sure he's a good enough player. But then if they do want to come play there, I think it speaks for our community, it speaks for the people on our campus, the professors on our campus, the coaches, that the little brother wants to come play with big brother. So I think anytime that you already have one of them, you already know the family, you've been in the family, you've recruited there. And then when the young brother comes along and he's a good enough player and he wants to come play there, then usually that means that the older brother's had a good experience there. He enjoys it, enjoys probably the biggest thing that we can sell at the University of Idaho is our people. I think we got a lot of great people, from our administration to the professors on campus to the people even around the dome. Everybody, everywhere they go, they enjoy it. Great community to live in, and so that's kind of been we've been very blessed to have a lot of pairs of brothers that have came and played here, and then former. I'm getting old when you're recruiting sons of the dads that you already coach. So that's been a big part of it too.
Now, Coach Best, how do you take an unbalanced Big Sky schedule and turn it into a positive asset when it comes to breaking down different programs?
One, you don't have to face Bo Baldwin in year one on the schedule. That helps, knowing the success he's had in this conference. But it's always a little bit like your birthday when you're opening up presents to see what the Big Sky has schedule-wise going, 3-4 years out in advance. It's hard for them, those schedules makers. Commissioner Wistersill does a good job with that, has people in place to be able to try to make it equal, not only from a travel standpoint, but a record standpoint. But it's never going to be equal. But as equal as we can make it, the better off we are. Creating rivalries with Idaho back in the Big Sky Conference allows us to have a game within 70 miles of campus and reconnect with what I've heard from even coaches on our staff, some of that animosity that was back in the late 80s, early 90s with the Eastern Idaho rivalry and as such. But you play who's scheduled, and at the end of the day, you can talk about who you don't play or who you do play, but last I checked, the ones on your schedules are the ones you show up playing. So it's what we have with a 13-team league, and you play eight league games, and the other 4 you watch from afar.
Coach Baldwin, what is the biggest challenge trying to adapt your personnel from the wishbone offense to your passing attack?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some challenges in some spots. There's no question, because you have a lot of very good football players and really bright football players who understand it, but sometimes maybe the length or their size or whatever, that particular athlete may not fit into, let's say, having multiple tight ends, that maybe they didn't have within their last offense, or, more tackles, instead of, it's very guard, heavy, within the offensive line when you look at that because of that style and, what they're doing, what they're asked to do. So there definitely are those challenges, but again, you have to just evaluate the guys, put the guys in the best chance for success, and know that there's a process to it. There's a process within recruiting, into that. There's a process with developing those guys who don't, like I said, maybe haven't run as many route tree concepts or haven't, pass pro'd as much or whatever that might be. That's your job as a coach, So, I mean, we're all having to do that, whether you're changing systems or whether you're another coach that has 2 or 3 guys injured and you're having to, develop somebody. I mean, I can bring back memories of Coach Best in 2011 having to develop a walk-on tight end and make him a center. That's not a joke, but I mean, that's part of our job, and so I don't look at it as being as much of it's a fun challenge. It is a challenge, but it's going to be a fun process to go through.
Now, Coach Petrino, your defense is veteran heavy, led by linebacker Christian Ellis. You also brought in some experienced transfers. What's your overall take on the defense this year?
Yeah, defense should be one of our strengths for sure. As we got basically all the front 7 back. They all got a lot of experience last year. A couple of them were injured at times. Losing Charles Acano in the middle of the year, that hurt us because he was having an outstanding year. And then so having him back will be really nice. But I think led by Christian Ellis and Trey Walker as the 2 linebackers, Charles Acano outside on the edge. I think those 3 guys will be the 3 best players on our defense and should do a really good job for us. We had Coyote played in some games and then missed some games last year with injury. So it would be really good if we can have him back and play throughout the year. I think Nate DeGraw was probably the most overachiever, most improved player on our defense, really improved as the year went on. That'd be another. I was an assistant in Idaho and his dad played here. So that's another guy that how old I'm getting when his son's playing for us. But Nate had a great year for us and really improved throughout the year. So I think the biggest thing is our secondary, how well. I think we're going to be pretty strong up front and in the front 7. And it'll just be how well we play in the secondary, and obviously in this league, that's a big thing. But I do think we'll have a few guys that can rush the quarterback, so hopefully that should help.
Now, Coach Baldwin, how does the league overall look similar or different right now compared to during your previous stint at Eastern Washington, especially when you led the Eagles to the national title in 2010?
I mean, truthfully, it looks stronger from top to bottom. And I know you don't put a lot into preseason rankings, but you can see national preseason rankings with a number of schools, not just in the top 25, but in the top 10. And there's probably 2 or 3 other schools that'll creep their way into that maybe, that are unknown right now. So you can say you don't put a lot into rankings, but rankings are based off recent success. And so that just shows you, what's been happening at a national level in this conference. So it just keeps getting stronger, and it gets stronger with the coaching, and you see that it gets stronger with the recruiting because of the great coaches that come in there and can recruit. So ultimately, I know a lot of people use the cliche, there's never a week off, but you can truly look at the Big Sky schedule, and that's a legit comment. Or sometimes I think it's just being said, it truly is. I mean, it's tough top to bottom. And there'll always be a team or two that you don't even think. And all of a sudden, they're the ones, climbing up that sucker. And so it's a challenge every way. It's tougher.
Absolutely. Now, Coach Best, what will it take for a Big Sky team to overtake North Dakota State?
Well, you got to overtake the other 12 teams in the conference first, and then you got to start in the regional landscape, and then you start working your way when getting the opportunity to a 12th game, a 13th game, 14th game, 15th game. So a lot of people ask, how do they do it? How do you do it better than them? How do you get to the same level? And I think you got to start in-house first and not worry about what's outside of your confines when it's all said and done, because last time I checked, it's a 60-minute game. Team that scores the most points wins, and they've done a better job than anyone of doing that over the last decade. And so give credit and kudos to them with multiple head coaches involved in that process. And so if you worry about North Dakota State, then you're not worried about the other 12 teams in the league. So get the opportunity to see North Dakota State and play North Dakota State usually means that you've got an opportunity in the playoffs. And then you take it at a 1-week clip at that point. So it's less about them and more about us, and then getting a chance within the league to be able to do it on a national level.
Absolutely. Now, this is a question for all of you. Are there any things that you've learned through the times that we're going through that you will take with you into future years? Coach Petrino, we can start with you on that one.
Yeah, I'd say I got on each group, so each position coach has a group text message group that he's with. And when it started, I got on each one of those groups. And that's something I'll always do from here on out, because I think it helps you just stay in touch with all the different groups in a quick manner. It also makes sure, I think, the coaches do a better job when you're on there as the head coach of making sure everything is – it's just something that I really – had not done before. I'd obviously had my own text to the whole team, but I think that's different. I think that's different than all the separate little groups by positions, and that's something that I've done. I think getting in all the, having all the Zoom meetings and then being able to sit in on all the Zoom meetings, kind of the same thing with all the different position groups. I think that's something that I've really enjoyed, and you don't always have enough time, especially if, like all 3 guys on this screen are all very involved with the offense. So you're not always in all the defensive meetings as much as you would like to, but being in with all the Zoom meetings, being involved in all those and being around them all, I think that's something definitely I've learned and something I'd want to continue to keep doing as much as possible.
Coach Baldwin, what about you and your program?
A lot of it is exactly what Coach Petrino said for me. I mean, I got, and it was actually a couple other coaches on staff, got us going with a group me type of deal, which was different than, and I wouldn't have known even what that is, but it's allowed for us to create a bunch of ways to communicate. One of them's a medical staff, one of them's a recruiting group me, one of them's it's different threads where one of them's just getting out to the whole team, without it being a text, but actually this little, app deal, which obviously I consider myself a little old school and not very good with some of that stuff unless my daughters help me. So that's been something that I know I'll carry with, just some of those things. The Zoom meetings also, to reiterate, it did allow to, to sit in on different meetings, did some of the same things with position specific. I didn't focus as much on the team meetings. I felt like it was a little overwhelming. I used the group ones. I couldn't see everyone's face. I didn't think it was, so I didn't do that as much, but I definitely like jumping on the position meetings and getting true conversations. So maybe even when we're out of this time, there'll be times where we do still use the Zoom, and it allows some of that face-to-face within a position, whatever, even when those guys, instead of just, calling somebody or doing that, there might be times where you end up utilizing that. So, but I also learned I'd rather be back face-to-face. I'll be honest with you. I'm zoomed out. So I'm sure everyone is. So I did learn that too, that we aren't meant to live like this and in a bubble. And so I'm ready.
I echo that. Coach Best, is there anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, I think there's three things that come to mind, and one of them is a family at home. I got asked a lot, like how do you handle your kids and your wife being home all the time? I'm kind of a homebody. We're kind of homebodies to a certain degree, so it wasn't much of an adjustment for our family because we get sick of each other anyway. So we just got more sick of each other and find creative ways to find more bones to pick with each other. But knowing that we kind of enhanced what we already had foundationally as a family at home. And then from a football standpoint, I think developing leadership, a lot of the things echoed by the coaches already, Coach Petrina, Coach Baldwin, are what a lot of teams have done, whether small group chats, Zoom meetings, what have you. But a lot of our guys took it upon themselves to run player run practices in town, the guys that were in town their entire existence. During COVID, there's a lot of challenges, whether it be, FaceTime or text or a team message by our older juniors and seniors. And so I think it allowed them to grow leadership-wise in terms of that, instead of being in person, doing it from afar, and then challenging those guys once we do get in person. We'll see how the work turns out once it's really seen when you're challenged from a distance. And then thirdly is the recruiting aspect. I think a lot of coaches became more creative in recruiting, relying upon, the May in-school visits, relying upon the official visits, how to become more creative in the recruiting realm and utilizing what the NCAA allows you to do in these times. Some of those tactics will carry forward. So we mesh the old school with the new school and do it in different measures. So in three ways: recruiting one, in-house in terms of our own best house two, and then the Eastern house three. There was some progression for sure the last 4 or 5 months.
All right, so now our next set of questions will be related to COVID-19 and social injustice. So this question is for all of you. With respect to COVID-19, how has it impacted your program, and what specifically are the biggest challenges towards keeping your players and coaches safe and healthy throughout the season? Coach Petrino, we can start with you.
I think, kind of what's already been mentioned by some of the other coaches. The first thing that I think you really understand is why we do this, why we coach, and that's being around them. That's as much as anything that you miss. You miss the interaction day in and day out and helping them with whatever that is, So I think when you do get to see them, even just going into the weight room, it's so exciting. It's just exciting to see them. It's excited to be around them. So, we're just going to have to do everything we can that's best for the players and best for the staff to keep everybody safe and do everything by the guidelines. Chris Walsh is our trainer. He's kind of set everything up, and we go by what he says. Really, he's the king of the school right now, because he decides how we're going to do things and what procedures we're going to take. And when our guys go into the weight room every day, they get their temperature taken. They answer all the questions. When everybody got back, they were all tested. So it's kind of a day by day how things go, and we'll just kind of proceed by how he says we can do things, honestly. But the biggest thing is it'll just be so nice to see them more in person. Starting next week, we can actually be around them when they're out there running and working out, and that'll be a great thing. And because that's why we do this. That's why we coach, because we like to be around young men and help them become older men that know how to be successful in life. So that's probably the most exciting thing that you found out, is how much you miss just being around them, and I think how much they miss being around each other. So I don't think they'll take that for granted anymore.
Coach Baldwin?
Yeah, I mean, it was just, you learn just that everyone has a kind of sometimes a different feel on it too. But you respect everyone, because everyone's sensitive to certain things and within their family, and ultimately you respect everyone's feelings within how maybe COVID hit their family or how their parents feel about it. And, what's the right time for them to come back to campus. And it's got to be, within that, within what's right for them and their family and how they feel. And just really kind of echoing what Coach Petrino says, we're going to follow the guidelines. We have trainers that do a great job. We have, they provide the information. It's stuff that a lot of it's above me, in terms of understanding it, but I'm going to listen, and they become the head coaches of what we do, so to speak, and we'll follow the guidelines. And we're all, it's all different for us. We know that, but we're following the guidelines, knock on wood, and hopefully, again, we're at a place here very soon where we're able to be, just closer and truly around our players without it being, on a Zoom.
Coach Best, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I just think probably everyone across the nation has some type of angst and anxiousness because structure routine is altered, especially us as coaches and as players. Everything we do is regimented, structured, routine. And that was a challenge from the get-go when we, took classes offline, was how do you stay routine? How do you become or be similarly structured from afar, if you will? Get up at the same time, go to bed at the same time. There's a lot more freedoms when you're not around, and when there's no meetings, when there's no set lifting times, when there's no position meetings every single day, when there's no spring football. So really the challenge was from the get-go is staying as structured. It's going to be different, but how can we make it less different or the least amount of difference in your normal routine on campus that it is from where you're at now? And so our guys have done a pretty good job with that. But we're kind of we're as coaches, we're so routine driven, and our players are no different. And so when you're out of your routine, it's hard to then kind of recalibrate a little bit and get back on the trail that you're on as far as the path to progression. And so it's been tough. It's been extremely difficult, but the one word that comes to mind is being proactive. With this piece, with the answers we get, with the protocols in place, just being proactive. Don't sit back, be in front of things as opposed to being behind things. But structure, routine are two things that really, really stood out in the last 4 to 5 months.
Now, between the pandemic and the fight for racial equality, what kind of conversations have you all had with your teams about everything that's happened in 2020 so far? Coach Petrino, we can start with you on that one.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I need to do and that I've really tried to do and continue to do is be a good listener, and really try to listen to understand, because there's a lot of our players grew up different than I grew up, and they've gone through a lot of different things than I ever had to go through, or that I have to worry about my kids going through. So the biggest thing that I've really tried to do is be an extremely good listener and try to understand and try to open up and let them talk. And then I think as a team, really be there for each other and listen to each other and really just try to help, because it's affected everybody many different ways, and everyone kind of handles it different. Some can verbally talk about it. Some it's a little harder. Some has to be more of a one-on-one conversation, or some will talk in a big group, so I think that's something, just the more we can all reach out for each other and really try to help. And there's been sometimes it's been more in a bigger group setting, sometimes in smaller settings. Had a former player come on. I thought he did a really good job, Kendrick Trotter. He played for us on our bowl team, and he's out of Stockton, California, and he's been very successful since he graduated. And I thought he really did an outstanding job of just talking to the players and talking about how they all need to be there for each other. And the more they can speak, even as a African American and a white, two players can speak together and be there for each other, that'll really help the whole team. I thought he did a really good job. But I just think we all need to be good listeners and really try to help as much as we can and really listen to understand.
Coach Baldwin, what kind of conversations have you had with your team?
100% what Coach Petrino said. My conversations during the time have been more listening and not me talking to them. But most of my conversations, and we've had some amazing leaders on our team. We do have some, but they've shown some amazing leadership qualities, during, some of those, just that tough time. We're still going through it, but, when everything was kind of hitting, they did an amazing job just connecting with our entire team and talking to, just everybody, and to sit back and to listen. I flat out learned, and that was, that's something that I never could have predicted 3 or 4 months ago, learning some of the things. And so I was really proud of not just, a number of guys on our football team, but really the whole football team, but really a number of guys that stepped up. And I really was just encouraged to see, with the youth and with some of the great leaders within our next generation, that change is very positive. And it's, so it's exciting me to see how they attack things. And, so it was, as much as anything, any conversation I had, hopefully you still got me there, but any conversation that I had was more about me listening to them 100%. So I could ask questions and listen, and they could talk. And that was enlightening.
Coach Best, what about the conversations you've had with your team?
Yeah, I think to start it out with, it's a lot player driven and assistant coach driven. They hear from us head coaches a lot, and as anybody knows, sitting in a room with any head coach or assistant coach as a student athlete, not all of it's heard, not all of it's listened. So really challenging the student athletes we have, the assistant coaches we have. I want to learn from them. I want to listen to them. So we developed a listen, learn, and love phase, and we do that about every 3 weeks and get on, whether it's small group driven, large group driven. Our administration has put together and talked amongst coaches in the departmental side of things, away from the student athlete section. We've been part of protests, Black Lives Matters protests in Spokane. We had a video that was well done. It was awesome to see and awesome to be a part of from multiple student athletes here on campus. We want to be out in front of it. We want to be proactive and not reactive. And so our guys have done a great job. Their voices are heard. But again, just like us coaches in the field that we're in, we don't want to stop learning. So this isn't the end game as far as this social injustice phase we're in. This is till eternity. And so continuing to listen to those and hearing stories and testimonies from our players and coaches is just awesome. It gives me chills talking about it because I'm kind of a junkie for information. And the more information you have, the more you can use in your future experiences. And so it's been fun. It will continue. And I'm happy and humbled to be a part of those discussions.
Now, one last question for you all in regards to this before we move on to our Twitter questions. How have you supported your African-American athletes and amplified their voices during this time? Coach Petrino?
Yeah, I think just trying to, we had a Black Lives Matter protest here in town, just trying to be down there and be present and be there for them any way you can. And then just try to, some of it's just repeating, but, just again, try to always just give them a call once in a while and see how they're doing. The different guys that were, when they were all back home, different guys were in different places, and just try to reach out to them one-on-one and reach out to them as a whole group in small groups, but really just try to be out front and make sure that they know that you care about them and that you're going to do everything you can to help them in any way you can.
Coach Baldwin?
Yeah, very, very similar. I mean, we had a Black Lives Matter protest led by Jalen, Xavier, and a number of other guys, and a number of our, teammates showed up. And really, it's just encouraging them that you guys are doing an amazing thing. You guys, just reiterating what your guys are doing. And like Coach Best said, this is not, it's not just like, oh, we did this. Now, no, we're moving forward to continue to grow, but really just empowering them to understand what you're doing is special. What you're doing is bigger than football. What you're doing is bigger than, and just so they feel that. Because especially as a young person and you visualize your assistant coach, your head coach being, sometimes you view it as, well, that's my head coach or this or that. The more you can empower them and feel like, oh my gosh, he's empowering me, which we should, but they need to feel that what you're doing from a leadership standpoint, especially doing it the right way, like our guys, we're doing and are going to continue to do is huge. And it's much bigger than anything else we're doing on the athletic field, weight room, or anything like that. So I just feel I think they feel that confidence and that, just that, yes, this is the right thing.
Coach Best.
Yeah, it was awesome to hear from a plethora of our players when I asked them what is best, what is the most progressive, and a lot of the guys that was being real and not being silent, being authentic, and then at the end of this is not stopping. There's no end point to this. We need to continue to do it together. We're not always going to agree, but we always got to continue to collect knowledge and push forward. And so the realness and the authenticity of our players that really spoke many great words to not only their teammates but their coaches and support staff. Those are things that really stuck out to me. And our program was being authentic, being real, and truly knowing that there's no end game to it. That as much as we can do individually, much like any team, the better we are individually, the better we are collectively. And I stand with our players, always have, always will. And that's important for them to know, like Coach Baldwin said, just the empowerment and the leadership that we derive. Sometimes the best leaders don't always speak. They listen too. That's how you gain more traction. And so in this time and as we go forward, I'm going to sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride with the guys that we brought in, that we said this is your home away from home, and we stand by that, and we'll continue to do what we can to make them feel at home when they leave their 18 years home once they get on campus. And so it's challenging, but we love challenges. That's why we do what we do. But on a personal level, with these kids, just to see the growth, transformation from 18 to 23 is unmatched in any profession, in my honest opinion. And I'm fortunate to be part of that.
Thank you all for your words on that. So now it's time to answer some questions from Big Sky football fans on Twitter. So Coach Best, the first question is for you from Mike Capoletti. He asks, other than Cheney, Spokane, or Spokane rather, which Big Sky school or city has the best local grub options? Name a favorite location and a meal or two if possible.
Capoletti probably thinks we just, drop the team off on Fridays and go frequent the city when we're in town, which is much to the contrary. Maybe Coach Petrino gets out, but I don't. I actually enjoy the confines of a hotel room and never have had room service. Coach Baldwin wouldn't allow us to do that as assistant coach. But I would say if you ask me for a staple place no longer in existence, Coach Baldwin, I think, has been there, is not in a Big Sky town. It is in Furcrest, Washington, of all places. Viafor's Delicatessen, the large pepperoni pizza bread by Dave Viafor. Dave Viafor is second to none. So you don't look this good if you don't eat a bunch of pizza bread growing up and frequent the joint when you're out recruiting on the west side of the state. So it's not a Big Sky place, but it's the best place. Viafor's Delicatessen, no longer in existence. Family-owned tradition for about 50 years.
Coach Petrino, this next question is for you. You have a very athletic family. What's one sport your children probably are not good at?
They're not the best swimmers that you would like them to be. For sure, the two daughters don't swim as well as you wish. That'd probably be swimming.
All right, and Coach Baldwin, what's your favorite thing about San Luis Obispo so far?
I think the variety, that's what I'd say. You can go, I went skeet shooting with a couple boosters when I first got there. So, and I'm a city kid, so I didn't grow up doing that, but I enjoyed doing it and it was a blast. But then 10 minutes later, you're on the beach with surfers and then you have hiking and then you have, so it is, and the people, the people are, I'm not gonna lie, it is pretty tough not to be happy if you're walking around there. But it's just so much variety and so many different things. And you see horses and farming within 10 minutes. And then next thing you know, you're around the beach. So it is a pretty unique place in Central Coast, California.
All right, so one last Twitter question for all of you from Big Sky Commish. If you were a player in the Big Sky today, what position would you play? Coach Best, we'll start with you on that one.
Before, let's clear this up. So we is this our dream position, or is this the position that our body allows us to play?
Give me an answer for both.
Okay. The position I played was center and long snapper, and I've always told guys this: if you can't play center in college football, you are a long snapper, and if you can't long snap, you can't do anything. So I was close to doing nothing. So give you the real answer is what I played, center and long snapper. But I would say if I was a dreamer and I could play in the Big Sky any position, I would want to play quarterback at Eastern Washington University.
All right, there we go. Coach Petrino, your answer.
I was an option quarterback, so I could have, in the previous Cal Poly offense, I probably could have played in that wishbone. But, yeah, I think I would always probably want to be a quarterback or receiver. But if I had if the dream world, if we were in the dream world, honestly, I'd like to be a great big 6'6", 320 offensive tackle.
Coach Baldwin.
I'll go with playing slot receiver at Eastern Washington and being able to don number 10. I mean, because he was not only a great player, he was basically my life coach. I used to tell our staff that all the time. That kid's more mature than all of you guys and myself put together. So,
I never believed you. I never believed you, Coach.
It's true. It's true, though. He's more mature and so it wasn't just a great player. So how about that? I'll don number 10 at Eastern Washington and then see where that leads.
There we go. Well, thank you, coaches Baldwin, Best, and Petrino for joining us on the Big Sky Football Virtual Kickoff.